Hello all, I'm Sai and you're watching The Book Dragon. In today's video, we are going to see the entire story of Ponniyin Selvan in under 2 hours. Now, if you watched all of my individual videos for the 5 books as summaries before, I have to tell you that there is going to be nothing new in this video compared to those videos because this is just a combination of all those 5 videos put together. Now you might ask me why I am releasing this video separately when there are 5 such videos already out in the channel. I have 2 reasons for that, of which the first is, since all of those videos are in a playlist, many people might not have the patience to get into the playlist and watch each and every video. The second reason is the most important of all, and it is that since each and every one of those videos is more than 10 to 15 minutes long, there will be at least 2 YouTube ads for each and every video. So it will be very annoying to skip the ad and watch the video completely, or completely watch the ad and then watch the video. Just in order to avoid that friction and discomfort, I have combined all the 5 videos into one and I am presenting it here. So without any further ado, let's get into the story right away. Before getting into the summary of the first book, I want to let you guys know who are the characters available inside this book. The only difficulty which I faced while reading this first book was to follow all the different characters because there are so many of them and all of them are doing their own storylines in different places, so it's not very easy to follow all of them without knowing who they are throughout the story. But the plot as a whole is not that complicated or difficult to understand. If you know the characters well, I'm sure that you'll be able to follow the story easily and enjoy it completely. It is also super fast paced, so you'll not be able to put down the books at all because it is really well written. Each and every character is really nice, so let's see who they are right now. I'm reading the series in Tamil, so all the names of the characters that I'm going to pronounce now are going to be the way in which we pronounce them in Tamil. I'm not sure how they are going to change some names in other languages because there are some letters in Tamil which are not available in other languages. First, let's see the protagonists of this story, who are the Cholas or Solargal. The king whom we focus on throughout this first book is Sundara Solar, who's the king who's ruling throughout the Sora dynasty. He has 3 children, of whom the first one is Aditya Karikalan, and he is building this fortress made of gold in Kanchipuram, and along with him we have his friend Parthibendra Pallavar. He also has another friend named Vandiyathevan, who is sent as a messenger by Aditya Karikalan to deliver a scroll to Sundara Solar and another scroll to his younger sister Kundavai. Kundavai is known as Ilaya Pirati and she is residing in Palayarai, which is said to be the place from which the Chola dynasty started developing. Along with Kundavi, we have her friend Vanati, who is also a princess, and Vanati is to be betrothed to Kundavai's younger brother Arulmozhivarman, who is currently at war in Sri Lanka. And he is the youngest of all the 3 siblings and also the hero of this entire series, that is Ponniyin Selvan himself. Even though he is the main character of the entire series, we don't see much of him in this first book. We just get to know a lot of things about him and where he is, but don't see him as a person at all. When we talk about the antagonists, we just have 3 main characters, and of these the first one is the elder brother Periya Palvettarayar, who is 60 years old, and his younger brother Chinna Palvettarayar, and Periya Palvettarayar's wife Nandini, who is the main antagonist of this entire series. Now Nandini is just 21 years old, whereas Periya Palvettarayar is 60 years old, so the age difference between them in their marriage is very vast. Apart from the protagonist and the antagonist, we also have another main character named Alvarkadiyan Nambi or Thirumalayappan, who appears throughout the first book, but he doesn't affect the plot of the first book as much if you ask me. The story starts with Vandiyathevan crossing the Veeranarayana lake and heading towards Tanjavur in order to deliver the scroll that is to be delivered to Sundara Solar. While he is going towards Tanjavur, he meets Alvarkadiyan Nambi in a fight that is going on between him and a Saivite. Now Alvarkadiyan Nambi is a very stringent Vaishnavite and he does not like anyone who is talking ill of his god. During this meeting with Vandiyathevan, Nambi tells Vandiyathevan that Nandini, who is the wife of Periya Palvettarayar, is his younger sister. After getting knowledge of this, what happens is Vandiyathevan goes to a small place in between Tanjavur and the Veeranarayana lake where one of his friends named Kandamaran lives, and he lives in Kandamaran's place for one night alone. But what happens during that night is Vandiyathevan does not get sleepy, so he just goes forward and roams throughout the palace in which he is staying, and while he is roaming he gets to know about the secret meeting that is happening between many small rulers under the Cholas, and the person who is heading this meeting is Periya Palvettarayar himself. Along with Periya Palvettarayar, we also see this palanquin inside which someone is sitting. Everyone has been thinking that Nandini is the person who is inside that palanquin, and Periya Palvettarayar has been taking her along with him everywhere he is going because of the age difference that they have. But during that meeting, what is revealed is that it's not Nandini inside the palanquin. Madurandagan, who's planned to overthrow Sundara Solar and become the king after him. The motto of the secret meeting is to make Madurandagan, who's another prince, to become the king after Sundara Solar. And the reason why this is a very heavily political plot is because after Sundara Solar, the person who is to be in line for the throne is Aditya Karikalan, who is currently building this fortress in Kanchipuram. But the Palvettarayars plan to overthrow the Cholas and bring Madurandagan onto the throne because they can use him as a puppet ruler and rule the entire Chola dynasty as their own. Since the other small rulers also have a great benefit because of this, they also support the Palvettarayars. Vandiyathevan gets to know about all the secret plot that is going on. At the same time, what he notices is that Nambi is also seeing this secret meeting which is been going on, but Nambi does not see Vandiyathevan also seeing the meeting. After getting knowledge of this, what happens is Vandiyathevan leaves the place of his friend the next morning and heads towards Tanjavur. While he is going towards Tanjavur, he sees another palanquin which resembles the same in which Nandini was to be, but Madurandagan was in. So when he goes and hits the palanquin accidentally, what happens is the person inside the palanquin is not Madurandagan but Nandini herself. After seeing Nandini, Vandiyathevan tells her that her brother Nambi told him to meet her. Seeing the complexity of what all has happened and not to keep everything secret, Nandini asks Vandiyathevan to come and meet him the next day inside her palace. But Vandiyathevan cannot enter the palace as such, so Nandini gives him a ring in order to use and get inside the palace. After getting the ring from Nandini and loitering for some time inside Tanjavur, Vandiyathevan gets to meet the flower seller named Sendan Amudan, and he spends the night in his house so that he can go and meet the Cholas the next morning. So Sendan Amudan as well as his mother, who dumped, support Vandiyathevan throughout that night and send him to the Chola kingdom the next morning. The main reason why Vandiyathevan has to get into the Tanjavur palace is to meet Sundara Solar and deliver him the scroll, but he cannot go and directly meet Sundara Solar because there is Chinna Parvetarayar whom he has to cross before him. So in order to trick him, what Vandiyathevan does is he uses the ring that was given by Nandini and says that it was given by his elder brother Periya Parvetarayar, and goes and meets Sundara Solar and delivers the scroll to him. The message inside the scroll from Aditya Karikalan asks Sundara Solar to get back to Kanchipuram somehow, but Sundara Solar cannot go as such to Kanchipuram because his entire lower body is paralyzed, and because of this he cannot move that easily. In order to do even everyday work, he has to depend on other people's support. Hence he is ruling from Tanjavur itself, and the Parvetarayars are kind of protecting him. During the time when Vandiyathevan meets with Sundara Solar, what happens is Periya Parvetarayar also comes to the palace, and because of this Chinna Parvetarayar understands that he's been tricked by Vandiyathevan, and hence he is going and imprison Vandiyathevan. At this time what happens is Sundara Solar, being the king, says that they have to treat him as a guest and protect him as much as they can. Since Vandiyathevan is turned into a guest now, he is given new clothes and jewels to wear. Since Vandiyathevan is also a person who loves wearing new beautiful clothes and jewels at the same time, he removes his old clothes and gives it to them in order to get them washed. The thing that he forgets when he is getting dressed is that the other scroll which is to be delivered to Kundavai is also inside the dress that he has given for washing. Because of this, the Parvetarayars get to know the message that is given inside Kundavai's scroll. Even after knowing this, when Vandiyathevan asks back the scroll, they give it to him and he tries to escape from the palace, but he cannot because he is kind of in this custody with the Parvetarayars. So he makes this plan to just go and sightsee inside the city of Tanjavur. He is sent into the city along with some guards, but he manages tricking the guards and escaping inside the crowd somehow. But what happens is he is not able to completely escape because he reaches the ending of the palace and there is this huge wall which is used as a protection from the external forces. And so the night time comes and he is able to see the single ladder at one point of the wall alone. So he climbs the ladder and gets to the top of the wall. At the top of the wall there is this woman who's waiting to take him to Nandini. But the main reason why the woman is waiting there is to take this magician from the palace's wall to Nandini. But the woman does not know that Vandiyathevan is not the magician because she's not seen either of them. So accidentally she ends up taking Vandiyathevan to Nandini. Nandini helps Vandiyathevan to escape from Tanjavur in exchange for a favor that he should deliver the message that is given as an answer by Kundavai for the scroll that is written by Aditya Karikalan to her. Vandiyathevan accepts Nandini's deal and escapes from Tanjavur with her help. But what happens when he is escaping is that he witnesses the attack on his friend Kandamaran by one guard from the backside. Since he is attacked from the back and Vandiyathevan tries to save him, Kandamaran ends up misunderstanding that Vandiyathevan is the one who stabbed him in the back. After rescuing Kandamaran somehow, he takes him to Sendan Amudan's house because him and his mother are well versed in the healing practices. While he gets there, the Parvetarayar's troops who are searching for Vandiyathevan also head towards the home. So finally Vandiyathevan escapes from Tanjavur and gets to Padayarai somehow and delivers Kundavai's scroll to her. In that scroll also, Aditya Karikalan calls Kundavai and asks her to get back to Kanchipuram because everyone is aware of the plot going on under there in order to bring them down somehow. But what happens after Kundavai receives the scroll is that she gives another scroll to Vandiyathevan, asking him to deliver it to Arulmozhivarman in Sri Lanka, asking him to get back from Sri Lanka to Tamil Nadu itself because there is something which is going to happen huge and he needs to be present here. During the same time that Vandiyathevan is sent to Sri Lanka, in Kanchipuram we see Aditya Karikalan and Parthibendran deciding to send Parthibendran to Sri Lanka in order to bring back Arulmozhivarman again. So we have two people who are headed towards Sri Lanka trying to get back Arulmozhivarman back to Tamil Nadu. Who ends up reaching him first and gets him back to Tamil Nadu is the main premise during which the first book ends. But in the beginning of the video, I said that Nandini is the main antagonist of the series, right? The main reason why she is the antagonist is revealed towards the ending of the first book. We go to a flashback in which all the three Chola siblings, who are Aditya Karikalan, Kundavai and Arulmozhivarman, grow up with three other children of a priest, and these three children are Nandini, Nambi and their elder brother. They've grown up together, but during that time itself, Nandini and Kundavai had some rivalries going on between them. At the same time, Aditya Karikalan was very fond of Nandini even from such a very young age itself. Because of some reasons, what happens is the priest's family move on to some other place and all of them grow up as such. The main reason why Aditya Karikalan is chosen to be the heir of the throne is not just because of the fact that he's the eldest of the three siblings, but also because of the fact that he's the person who killed Veerapandiyan, because of which a huge war ended and the Chola dynasty got strengthened. We might have a question why this Veerapandiyan comes into the story of Ponniyin Selvan as a whole. The reason is that Veerapandiyan was the love of Nandini and he was executed in front of her eyes by Aditya Karikalan because he was envious of the fact that Nandini loved Veerapandiyan and not himself, but he ends up not killing Nandini and just letting her escape away. We get small chunks from Nandini's past showing us how she became the queen of Periya Pazhavittarayar after all the tragedies that happened in her life. Since her life was destroyed by Aditya Karikalan in the past, her main aim is to bring down the Cholas and demolish their entire empire. This is basically the main plot of the first book inside the Ponniyin Selvan series. Apart from the characters from the first book, the main character whom we follow here is Poonguzhali, who's a sailor woman, and she has a very prominent role to play in the series from the second book. After her, we have this minister named Aniruddha Brahmarayar, who's very close to the King Sundara Solar because both of them studied together when they were very young. Then we have this commander of the army called Vikramakesari, who's from Kodumbadur. Apart from these three characters, the other main character whom we follow here is a woman who cannot speak as well as hear, and she resides in Sri Lanka and she's one of the main focus throughout the second half of the book. Now we'll get into the story of the second book. The second book is far easier to follow compared to the first book because all of the main characters have been introduced to us. At the same time, the narration does not take place in different locations. It takes place in just 3 different locations, but more than half of the story happens only in Sri Lanka. The story starts out with Nambi going to Rameshwaram and meeting Aniruddha Brahmarayar because he is his guru. Aniruddha Brahmarayar gives Nambi this task of taking the scroll to Arulmozhivarman in Sri Lanka. The news inside the scroll for Arulmozhivarman is to stay in Sri Lanka and not get back to Tamil Nadu as of now. We already saw in the ending of the first book that Vandiyathevan as well as Parthibendra Pallavar have taken scrolls from Kundavai and Aditya Karikalan respectively, asking Arulmozhivarman to come back to Tamil Nadu, specifically to Palayarai and Kanchipuram. Now along with these 2 scrolls, there's a third messenger taking a different message to Arulmozhivarman, asking him to stay there. After this, we focus on Vandiyathevan's part of the story, where we see him heading towards Kodikkarai after getting the scroll from Kundavai. Accompanying Vandiyathevan is this apothecary's son sent by Kundavai along with him. Both of them reach Kodikkarai and meet this young lady named Poonguzhali, who's a sailor woman. When Poonguzhali sees Vandiyathevan, she starts running and he chases her. While he chases her, he gets trapped in a bog and he's saved by Poonguzhali afterwards. After he is saved, he says that both of them have come in order to go to Sri Lanka to get some medicines for Sundara Solar as he is not well right now. After hearing this, Poonguzhali says that 2 other men with the same reason came the day before and took her brother on a boat and he sailed them to Sri Lanka. So she takes both of them to her house, and after reaching there, Poonguzhali's father secretly tells Vandiyathevan that Poonguzhali is the only other person available to sail the boat from Kodikkarai to Sri Lanka. So if she is asked to help right now in the night, she will refuse it. He advises Vandiyathevan to ask her the favor the next morning. During that night, some conversations happen between Poonguzhali and Vandiyathevan, and because of this, Poonguzhali accepts to take Vandiyathevan as well as the apothecary's son to Sri Lanka. The next morning when Vandiyathevan is bathing in the sea, he has kept his clothes as well as the scroll out on the shore, and after seeing this, Poonguzhali just takes up his scroll and runs away. Vandiyathevan goes after her, and after reaching her, Poonguzhali gives him the scroll back, but she has read the message inside the scroll before itself. She doesn't tell that to Vandiyathevan. At the same time, she informs this thing to Vandiyathevan, saying that the apothecary's son who came along with him tried to hand him over to the people sent by the Pazhavittarayars in order to take him back to Tanjavur as a prisoner, and she says that right now they are in search of him inside the area. In order to save Vandiyathevan from them, she makes him stay in a cave inside the forest and tells him that when the night breaks, she'll come take him and head towards Sri Lanka in her boat. Just as she said, Poonguzhali comes back and takes Vandiyathevan on her boat and travels with him towards Sri Lanka. While going in the way only, she reveals to him saying that she read the message inside the scroll and she knows who Arulmozhivarman is because she has taken him on her boat before. After getting to know this, Vandiyathevan thinks that she might be someone who's part of someone else's plan, and he jumps inside the sea. Since he has this phobia for water and swimming, he ends up fainting inside the water. Poonguzhali saves him from the sea and takes him to this island called Mayathivu. She makes him stay there and tells him that he'll go to the nearby island and get some news on where Arulmozhivarman is. She goes to the other island named Bhudathivu, and there she gets to know where Arulmozhivarman is from this old woman whom we see before, and that old woman cannot speak or hear. After getting to know that Arulmozhivarman is in Mathupu, she comes and tells Vandiyathevan about that. She also tells Vandiyathevan that if he wants to get back to Tamil Nadu in her boat, he can find her somewhere in the same place where she drops him. So Vandiyathevan is in Sri Lanka now and he heads towards meeting Arulmozhivarman. While all these things are happening in Sri Lanka, there are some other things that are happening in Tanjavur parallelly also. Kundavai, who was initially in Parayarai, has come to Tanjavur because she knows the plans of the Pazhuvettarayars and she does not want the Chola kingdom to come under their rule. So she comes with the reason that she has come for the Navaratri festival and she is going to start this medical facility in Tanjavur just as she did in Parayarai, and she is to open it during the Vijayadashami day of the Navaratri festival. After reaching Tanjavur, she also gets to know that the Pazhuvettarayars have sent people in order to get Vandiyathevan, who branded as a spy by the Pazhuvettarayars, because they say that he is the person who attacked Kandanmaran from the back, and Kandanmaran also believes that Vandiyathevan is the one who injured him. After meeting Kandanmaran and getting to know what has happened, Kundavai gets an idea of what might have transpired and she does not give up her trust on Vandiyathevan. When she gets to know that Vandiyathevan is being searched for, she also sees that the apothecary's son has been taken in place of Vandiyathevan and brought back as a prisoner. While all these are happening, Sendanamudan, who was the person that protected Vandiyathevan and helped Sendanamudan, is imprisoned by the Pazhuvettarayars. So Kundavai ends up releasing him from the prison. After doing all this, Kundavai wants to put up a show of the reason that she said for coming to Tanjavur, that is to see the Navaratri festival. Since she has come from Parayarai to Tanjavur and she is the beloved princess of the people, they conduct this play in which the historical event of Aditya Karikalan overthrowing Veerapandiyan is played, and while watching this, Nandini's face has some kind of different expressions which Kundavai notices and keeps in her mind. The interactions that happen between Kundavai and Nandini are so powerful and they are very difficult to describe in any other language other than Tamil. If you can read Tamil, please do go forward and read the second book. I can say that you can read the second book just for the interactions between Kundavai and Nandini alone because they are extremely powerful always. After seeing the play, Kundavai goes to the Kali temple alone as a woman. I am saying this in specific because during those days there was this custom by which women do not go to the Kali temple because the priests sometimes get some prophecies and start dancing. Because of this, the women might get frightened. But Kundavai is a princess and there is no one to stop her, so she goes to the Kali temple and no other women goes to the Kali temple then. When Kundavai is there in the Kali temple, there is something which happens in the palace also. So what happens in the palace is Vanati is not able to sleep during that night, so she just wanders in the corridors. While she is wandering, she gets this voice of a person who is lamenting about something, and when she goes and sees, it is the King Sundara Solar himself. He is looking at something in the vast distance and talking something like talking to a woman, saying that it's been 25 years since she died, but still she's been haunting him continuously. When Vanati tries to see whom he is seeing and talking all these stuff, she sees Nandini and Periya Pazhuvettarayar in midst of a smoky scene. She is not able to comprehend what has been happening and she tries to get out of that place, but when she is making her way through the corridor, she just faints there. The next morning, Kundavai gets to know that Vanati has fainted, and after that she goes and meets her father. Before this, Vanati does not say what all she saw that was happening to Sundara Solar as well as what Nandini and Periya Pazhuvettarayar were doing. While Kundavai meets Sundara Solar, she tells her a story which is secret and not to be told to anyone else. In that story, there is this young man in Sri Lanka who's sitting on top of a tree and seeing something that is going on in the jungle. After some time, he hears this sound and sees a bear chasing a woman. After he saves the woman, he gets to know from the woman's father that the bear was actually trying to kill him, but the woman saved him by distracting the bear from him. After this, the woman and this man are together, and after a few days, what happens is the woman gets pregnant and a Chola troop comes from Tamil Nadu and takes the man along with them. Now this man is Sundara Solar himself. After reaching Tamil Nadu, he is married to Vanamagadevi as we see in the first book, but this woman whom he has been with in Sri Lanka has also been taken to the palace and she gives birth to her children there, and after that she just leaves the palace. She is sighted now and then at different places, but there's no concrete evidence of whom she is. While saying this, I should also include one incident that happened in the past in the life of the three siblings Aditya Karikalan, Kundavai and Arulmozhivarman. While they were very young children, one day they were on the boat in the Kaveri river along with their mother and father. Accidentally, what happens is Arulmozhivarman falls into the river and no one notices it. After he's missing for a while, everyone starts searching for him, and while they are going on the river itself, what happens is there is this mystical form of a woman that just lifts the child from the water and hands it down to the king. The king is not able to see whom that woman is, but after giving the child to the king, the form of the woman just vanishes. No one comes to claim any kind of prize for saving the king also after a few days, so everyone comes to a conclusion that it was the river goddess Kaveri herself who saved the child. Hence the child Arulmozhivarman was fondly called by the people as Ponniyin Selvan, which is the title of the series. After Sundara Solar tells the story to Kundavai, he asks her not to let it out to anyone because it might cause some problems for the throne, and Kundavai is definitely not going to tell it to anyone because she wants her younger brother Arulmozhivarman to take the throne after her father. While all these things are being done by the protagonist of our story, our antagonist is not idle. After Kandanmaran gets well from the treatment given by the Pazhuvettarayar, Nandini takes him to her side and she sends the scroll to Aditya Karikalan in Kanchipuram through Kandanmaran, asking Aditya Karikalan to come to Kanchipuram so that they can come for a settlement. After he comes, she is planning to do something which is not revealed in this book. Periya Pazhuvettarayar does not understand why all these things are being done by Nandini, but since she is doing them, he just keeps on supporting her blindly. After seeing what all has happened in Tanjavur, we are getting back to Vandiyathevan in Sri Lanka. He has reached Madottam now, and after reaching Madottam, he gets to meet Nambi, who has also come there in order to meet Arulmozhivarman. After both of them meet, they also get to meet Parthibendra Pallavar, who has come from Kanchipuram in order to meet Aditya Karikalar again. And along with Parthibendra Pallavar, there is this Perumbalur Vikramakesari, who's kind of the commander of the army. After getting to Madottam, they get to know that Arulmozhivarman is not in Madottam but has moved to Simmagiri, which is another place inside Sri Lanka. So Parthibendran and his group go on a separate way, and Nambi and Vandiyathevan go together. While Nambi and Vandiyathevan take a separate route, they have a very adventurous journey that is just beautiful. I cannot tell that entire journey for you guys here because the video will get so much long and I might get off track from the story. So I'm not going to tell it here. If you can, please just go forward and read that. I'm sure that you will love it. So after going through so many hurdles, Vandiyathevan as well as Nambi reach Simmagiri, and there are these two soldiers from an army who come and speak with Nambi alone, telling that there is this person who wants to meet Nambi, and both of them come to a conclusion that it is Arulmozhivarman who wants to meet Nambi. But Vandiyathevan is a bit concerned because he has also come to meet Arulmozhivarman alone, and he has to deliver the scroll because it has been given by Kundavai as the only duty for him. There are two soldiers who come along with one other horse in order to take Nambi alone, and both of them take two horses and one horse is given to Nambi. But Vandiyathevan decides to take a different route, and he just pulls the leg of one soldier and gets on his horse. And all these people keep going on the horse for quite a long time, and after that what happens is suddenly the other soldier who's there on a horse gets down and starts fighting with Vandiyathevan, but no one comes to separate them from the fight. Vandiyathevan is very brave and valiant, so he decides to defeat this soldier first before going and meeting Arulmozhivarman. What happens is the soldier ends up defeating Vandiyathevan, and at that point it is revealed to us that the soldier is none other than Arulmozhivarman himself. Nambi has known this all along, but he did not say it to Vandiyathevan. So at last, after all this time, Vandiyathevan as well as Nambi have delivered their scrolls to Arulmozhivarman, asking him to get back to Padayarai, at the same time stay in Sri Lanka respectively. So Arulmozhivarman takes Vandiyathevan and Nambi along with him, and they attend this very huge festival that happens in Sri Lanka that night. After the festival ends, Arulmozhivarman receives this message at the foot of a Buddha statue. According to the message, Arulmozhivarman takes Vandiyathevan and Nambi along with him and heads towards a cave. And in the entry of a cave, they meet this Buddhist monk who has a fire torch with him, and he takes all three of them inside the cave along with him. They travel through the cave and it is very enormous and grand. So after getting into the cave, they see this throne that is shown to them by the monk, and he says that the Buddhist monks of Sri Lanka have decided to give the throne to Arulmozhivarman, but Arulmozhivarman refuses to become the king there because the duty that was given to him by Sundara Solar was to go and win the war in Sri Lanka but not to take the throne. So he refuses the throne and gets away from there. After getting outside, they just stand outside this building under a roof, and they're able to see this woman on the opposite side. And the stunning thing about this woman is that she looks very much like Nandini. All her features, facial features, look like Nandini, but she's aged and she's very simple in her dressing. Arulmozhivarman goes and talks with that woman. Since that woman cannot talk, she uses sign language, and Arulmozhivarman completely understands her. After speaking with her, they go away from that space, and the roof of the place under which they stood just breaks down and falls. So if they had been there, they would have died easily. After getting away from that place, they stay in the small house. When they are staying in that house, Vandiyathevan asks Arulmozhivarman about that woman, and Arulmozhivarman says a backstory for that woman. While Arulmozhivarman and his army first came into Sri Lanka for the war, and there were these bushes near the settlement from which there was a crying sound that was heard continuously. When seen who was the reason for this crying, it was actually this woman, and she always ran away when they tried to speak with her. Finally, what happens one day is no one else goes to speak with the woman but Arulmozhivarman alone. The woman ends up taking Arulmozhivarman along with her to a cave and shows Arulmozhivarman some paintings, and these paintings actually say the story that was told by Sundara Solar to Kundavai, and Arulmozhivarman gets an idea of who this woman is and understands that she is the person who actually saved him as a child. He also shows Arulmozhivarman this very old man who's shivering continuously, and from her sign language he gets to understand that there is this kind of fever that is spreading inside Sri Lanka, and it is very lethal and can easily kill people. After that incident, each and every time there was a threat for Arulmozhivarman's life, there was the presence of this woman which continuously kept on saving him. So he has become very much used to her. While they are staying in that house, again this woman comes, and when they go and try to talk with her, they get to witness that the house has been set fire right now. The woman tells Arulmozhivarman not to stay in certain places for the night and leaves him there. The next morning, what happens in Simmagiri is Parthibendran and his crew also come and meet Arulmozhivarman, and they have brought Pungurli along with them because she has some news. After getting all these three scrolls delivered to him, Arulmozhivarman is totally confused because he is pulled in three different directions. Aditya Karikalan wants him to get back to Kanchipuram, Kundavai wants him to get back to Padayarai, and Aniruddha Brahmarayar wants him to stay in Sri Lanka itself. After all these three big decisions, there is a huge bomb that is dropped by Pungurli. There are these two ships that have landed by the coast of Sri Lanka in a particular place, and those two ships are from the Palvetarayars, and they have this order from Sundara Solar in order to take Arulmozhivarman as a prisoner back to Tanjavur. No one wants to leave Arulmozhivarman under the control of the Pazhuvettarayar. So they ask him to deny being taken away like a prisoner, but Arulmozhivarman refuses to do so because that order has come under the name of his father and he does not want to disrespect him. So he chooses to go with the Pazhuvettarayars as a prisoner. The other people also heed to his word, but they say that they will come along with him until he boards the ship of the Pazhuvettarayars. While they are making their way towards the coast where the ships are, Vikramakesari, who is the commander of the army, uses his power and makes a lot of crowd to gather in places through which the king is going. While they are travelling towards the coast where the ships are, Poonguzhali and Arulmozhivarman alone travel on an elephant because Poonguzhali is the only person who knows the short route in order to reach the shore easily, and all the others travel either via horse or on foot. Arulmozhivarman understands that Vikramakesari is doing all these things in order to delay his surrender to the Pazhuvettarayars. So what he does is he has this knowledge of how to behave with elephants. So he makes something to the elephant and makes it behave like it is out of control, and everyone is frightened that the elephant has gone astray and taken the prince as well as Poonguzhali along with it. But after going a short distance, Arulmozhivarman brings down the elephant to the normal position and they travel again. While they reach the coast, they can see only one ship, and that ship is totally shattered. They are not able to understand what has happened, and during this time only the woman comes again, and she comes on an Arabian horse, and they are very confused of why there is an Arabian horse and how it has reached there. She takes them to this place by a riverside where many people have been massacred very brutally. There is this captain of the ship that has been shattered alone who is sitting there, and that ship belonged to the Pazhuvettarayars, and that captain was under the order to bring Arulmozhivarman as the prisoner to Tanjavur. After letting Arulmozhivarman know all the things that have happened, the captain just dies. What has actually happened is one of the ships was not properly anchored, so it just hit the shore and got shattered. After that, they were raided by a group of Arabs who came out of nowhere. After letting Arulmozhivarman know this, the captain actually dies, and Poonguzhali and Arulmozhivarman just stay that one night alone in the coast, and the food for them is provided by the women. The next morning, what happens is Parthibendra Pallavar has come to the same coast where the Pazhuvettarayar's ship is said to be, and after reaching there, they see this one ship alone which is going on in a distance, and the people who are actually inside that ship are the Arabs who attacked this army, and the two people who were taken by Poonguzhali's brother to Sri Lanka the day before Vandiyathevan reached Kodikkarai. Vandiyathevan is along with Parthibendran's crew while they are reaching the coast. But what happens is, on seeing the one ship alone that is sailing in the sea, Vandiyathevan thinks that Arulmozhivarman has been taken in the ship and he wants to reach Arulmozhivarman. So he jumps inside the sea and somehow gets to that other ship. After getting into the ship only, he gets to know that Arulmozhivarman is not there and it is being taken by the Arabs and these two other people. They tie him up and try to finish him off. But Vandiyathevan somehow escapes and gets to know all the plans of the Pazhuvettarayars via Ravidasan. They trick Vandiyathevan with a deal and they leave Vandiyathevan alone in the ship and escape in a small boat. Now Vandiyathevan is totally stranded in the ship as a single man. He does not know how to sail the ship, and during this time only a storm also hits the ocean. After Parthibendra Pallavar and the crew meet Arulmozhivarman, they let him know that Vandiyathevan has actually jumped into the sea and reached the other ship in which he thought that Arulmozhivarman was in. Now that ship has been hit by lightning and it is burning. In order to save Vandiyathevan from the ship, Arulmozhivarman jumps into the sea, and Vandiyathevan also thinks that it's better to fall inside the ocean and die rather than to burn in the ship because of the lightning, so he also jumps inside the ocean. Arulmozhivarman somehow saves Vandiyathevan and both of them hold on to some planks and spend the night in the sea itself. Before all these has happened, since Poonguzhali's work of getting Arulmozhivarman to the coast is over, she is made to leave them. The next morning itself, she gets to know about the incident of the storm and she takes her boat to that side in order to help some people who might be stranded inside the ocean. As we saw before, Vandiyathevan as well as Arulmozhivarman are already floating in the ocean, grabbing onto their lives, and Poonguzhali is the person who ends up saving both of them. With Poonguzhali being the savior of Arulmozhivarman as well as Vandiyathevan, the second book ends. Now the second book ended with Poonguzhali saving Arulmozhivarman and Vandiyathevan, who were floating in the sea after they were caught in the storm, and Poonguzhali is now taking both of them in her boat towards Kodikkarai. And the thing that is happening in Kodikkarai is Periya Pazhuvettarayar and Nandini have come along with their army in order to search for Arulmozhivarman because they have known about the storm that attacked both the ships, and they have this news that Arulmozhivarman has sunk in the sea and he is not available anymore. During the same time, what happens is Parthibendra Pallavar, from whose ship Arulmozhivarman jumped into the sea, comes to Kodikkarai and he meets Periya Pazhuvettarayar and tells him everything that's happened. But Periya Pazhuvettarayar doubts Parthibendra Pallavar and he goes to check his ship. While his ship is being checked, Parthibendra Pallavar does not go along with Periya Pazhuvettarayar because he thinks that it might just increase the doubt if he is there along with his crew while the ship is being searched. So he stays in the shore, and in the shore along with them is Nandini, and Nandini starts to have a conversation with Parthibendra Pallavar. As a result of this, Parthibendra Pallavar sees Nandini and being mesmerized by her beauty, he decides to support her and do anything that she wants. Now the plan of Nandini is to separate the Chola kingdom into two parts and give one part each for Aditya Karikalan as well as Madurandagan in order to rule by them. The reason behind this plan is revealed by Nandini in the second half of the book. As of now, since Nandini has decided to give a part of the kingdom to be ruled by Aditya Karikalan, Parthibendra Pallavar accepts to Nandini's plan. At the same time, he has also been mesmerized by her beauty. So as of now, Parthibendra Pallavar has been taken over by Nandini to her side. While all these things are happening on the shore, Pungurli sees in the boat that there is some army on the shore, and she deduces that it might be the army of the Periya Parvattarayars. At the same time, she sees two people on the lighthouse who are trying to see what is going on in the sea, and she also has this doubt that they might have seen her boat. So she tells Vandiyathevan and takes a very secretive route through a swampland and leaves the boat in a safe space so that Vandiyathevan and Arunmozhivarman are not caught by any of the people from the troop, and she leaves to the Kuragar temple by the shore in order to get some food for both Vandiyathevan as well as Arunmozhivarman. She goes to the Kuragar temple and gets some milk as well as some prasadam from there and tries to get back to the boat. While she is making her way to the boat, she can see two people conversing inside a bush, and these two people inside the bush turn out to be Nandini and Ravidasan, who is the magician whom we saw in the first two books. The conversation that they are having is that Nandini gets to know that Pungurli might have planned to take Arunmozhivarman to the safe space where she hid Vandiyathevan for one night so that they can save him, and Nandini has gotten to know this secret because of Pungurli's sister-in-law, who's Rakamman. At the same time, Pungurli is able to see Sendan Amudan, who's her cousin, while she hears this conversation that is happening between Nandini and Ravidasan. After Nandini leaves, she does something and makes Ravidasan chase her, and while Ravidasan is chasing her, she tricks him and makes him fall into a bog. Sendan Amudan is along with Pungurli when she does this. Pungurli decides to let him sink in the bog, but Sendan Amudan is not able to bring himself up to leave a man to die. So he nudges Pungurli to save the man, but Pungurli is not very certain if she wants to save his life or not. So she takes the towel that Sendan Amudan has and ties it to a tree and gives the other end of the towel to Ravidasan and leaves him there so that he can escape if someone else comes and saves him. After this, Pungurli and Sendan Amudan leave to meet Arunmozhivarman and Vandiyathevan and tell Vandiyathevan what all has happened. During this time, what happens is Rakammal comes to Ravidasan's rescue and saves him out of the bog. After Pungurli and Sendan Amudan has said everything that's happened to Vandiyathevan, Vandiyathevan comes to this conclusion that Pungurli and Sendan Amudan should take Arunmozhivarman to Nagapattinam, where there is this Buddhist monastery where they can help Arunmozhivarman to relieve him of the fever that he has caught because of the reason that he was in Sri Lanka and also spent a whole night floating in the sea. At the same time, they also make Ravidasan believe that they have believed that Ravidasan has died, and when he exposes himself, Vandiyathevan acts as if he sees a ghost and runs away from there. During the same time, Pungurli and Sendan Amudan also manage escaping and taking Arunmozhivarman along with them to the Buddhist monastery in Nagapattinam. Sendan Amudan as well as Pungurli reach Nagapattinam and they let the Buddhist monks take care of Arunmozhivarman so that he can be saved from the fever. He is administered some medicines by the Buddhist monks. At the same time, Sendan Amudan and Pungurli are just around the same area in their boat so that they can take Arunmozhivarman when he is cured of the fever back to Kundavai and properly deliver him to her. During the same time, Vandiyathevan has left that place and he is heading towards Parayarai on a horse. He decides to stop at a goldsmith's place so that he can get some horseshoes made for the horse, and he sees the smith working on a huge sword which is very beautiful to look at, and there is this small symbol of a fish on the sword. When he asks the smith whom that sword belongs to, the smith says that if he does not ask him any questions, there is no need for him to lie. After hearing this, Vandiyathevan decides to leave it as such, and he stays there for some time so that the horseshoes can be made ready and then he can leave the place. Since it takes some time, he sleeps for a few hours, and during this time what happens is the Parvattarayars army passed through that place, and because of this, the public gets to know that Arunmozhivarman has sunk in the ship and something has happened to him, and everyone of the public thinks that this is the fault of the Parvattarayars because they are the people who decided to bring him as a prisoner from Sri Lanka to Tanjavur. Vandiyathevan, after waking up, gets to know all these things that have happened in Kodikkarai and the surrounding areas after the news of the probable demise of Arunmozhivarman has spread. He leaves the goldsmith's place and departs with his horse, but what happens in the way while he's traveling towards Parayarai is he's met with Devaralan, who is one of the people that is supporting the group which is behind Nandini, and a group of people tackle Vandiyathevan, tie his eyes and take him to a place, and when his eyes are unveiled, the person who's waiting for him there is Nandini. Nandini asks him for the ring that she gave him and tries to get him to her side by saying some sympathetic things about herself. Hearing this, Vandiyathevan feels some empathy for her. At the same time, there is some kind of undescribable fear that he feels. After having this conversation, Nandini just lets him go and Vandiyathevan heads towards Parayarai again. When Vandiyathevan reaches Parayarai, he sees this procession that is being taken especially for Madurandagan himself and spots him. When he spots Madurandagan, he also tricks him by acting like a psychic and trying to enter the castle of Parayarai along with him. While he is trying to get into the castle along with Madurandagan, he is seen by all the people there, and there is this one person alone in the crowd who is the apothecary's son whom we saw in the second book that has been released by Nandini and used as a pawn by her so that he can capture Vandiyathevan and point to him as a spy while he gets to Parayarai. Now, because of some things that the apothecary's son has done, he's considered to be kind of a retarded person by the public there. So when he spots Vandiyathevan and says to them that he's a spy, no one is ready to believe him. At the same time, Vandiyathevan also says that he's a psychic and not a spy. When Vandiyathevan needs to be rescued, comes our beloved Arvarkadiyan Nambi and tries to save Vandiyathevan. He hints him something and says that if you are a psychic, tell us the news that the two horsemen who are coming there are about to deliver here. And understanding what Nambi is telling him, Vandiyathevan tells them that the message to be delivered by the horsemen there is that one of the heirs to the throne has gone missing in the sea, and after the messengers deliver the message, it is confirmed. When the news is delivered, a commotion happens, and using that commotion as an opportunity, Nandi helps Vandiyathevan escape from the crowd and takes him to Kundavai. Kundavai is there on a boat by a lake, and when they meet, Vandiyathevan tells her everything that's happened and also tells her that Arunmozhivarman has been safely taken to the Buddhist monastery in Nagapattinam. After hearing this, Kundavai understands that Nandini might be her elder sister because she has heard the story that has said by Sundara Soran in the previous book, and she sends Vandiyathevan in order to meet Aditya Karikalan and stop him from meeting Nandini because she knows that if by any chance Aditya Karikalan meets Nandini, he will also probably end up siding with her. So Vandiyathevan leaves to Kanchipuram in order to meet Aditya Karikalan and stop him from meeting Nandini. During the same time, what happens is Aniruddha Brahmaraya from Sundara Sora's court comes with two messages to both the Periya Pirati as well as Kundavai, who's the Ilaya Pirati. He meets Periya Pirati and tells her that her son Madurandagan should be the next in line to the throne after Sundara Sora's death. But Periya Pirati refuses to take that because she has made this promise to her husband. Their son would not become the king of the Sora kingdom anytime. Because of the message, there is this commotion that is happening there, and by saying something, they handle the crowd. And on hearing this, Vanati faints and falls into the same lake where Vandiyathevan and Kundavai have been discussing, and eventually they end up saving her. After Vanati is being saved, she takes the decision to go back to Kodumbalur and be in her own home for a few days, but Kundavai is not ready for this, yet she does not want to make Vanati do anything that she does not want to do, and she lets her go. Vanati heads towards Nagapattinam in order to go to the Buddhist monastery and become a monk herself, and after this, Aniruddha Brahmaraya comes and meets Kundavai and tells her that it is her fault that has resulted in all this commotion in the kingdom, because if her message of asking Arunmozhivarman to come back to Parayare was not delivered by Vandiyathevan, he might have not sunk in the sea and all this commotion might not have happened. After hearing this, Kundavai gets agitated. At the same time, she understands also. So after all this happens, she decides to go to this nearby place called Anaimangalam and she leaves on an elephant. Now Vandiyathevan has headed towards Kanchipuram in order to meet Aditya Karikalan, right? On his way, what happens is one night there is a heavy downpour, and because of this he stays at a nearby cave during a night, and he sees this small child inside the cave, and the child is wearing a lot of ornaments and does not look like a normal child. It seems like a child from a very royal family. And when he asks the child why he is there, the child ends up saying that he wanted a horse and he was only carried in a palanquin by the people, hence he ran away in search of a horse. When there's this conversation that is happening between Vandiyathevan and the child, there's a group of people who come and try to take the child away from him, because that is the group of people to whom the child belongs, and those people treat the child like their ruler. And this group of people who come to take the child are actually the group that are supporting Nandini, and Vandiyathevan is able to see Ravidasan as well as Devaralan in that group. So Vandiyathevan is taken along by them and he's tied up to a tree, and there is this huge meeting that happens with a smoldering fire at a small distance away from Vandiyathevan, and the child has been made to sit on a throne and all the people are treating him like a king. To this meeting comes a woman who is very aggressive in her dressing, and that woman turns out to be none other than a Nandini, and Nandini is having that sword which we saw her having in the beginning. She keeps that sword in front of the people and tells them that their plan is going as per schedule, and if everything happens properly, they will have won their goal by the end of next week. And she tells the child that he has to take the sword and give it to any one of the people there, and that person will end up killing their enemy with their own hands. The child ends up giving the sword to Nandini itself, and when others try to protest against it, Nandini says that that is the decision that was taken by the child and she must be the one who ends up killing their enemy. And during that same time, she also reveals her plan, saying that she has decided to divide the Sora kingdom into two parts, one to be ruled by Aditya Karikalan and the other to be ruled by Madurandagan. And when both of them start to quarrel amongst each other and fight, the Sora kingdom will come down to an end by itself. After everything is over, Ravidasan takes Nandini to Vandiyathevan and shows him to her. He asks whether Vandiyathevan should be executed there itself, but Nandini says that he must not be executed and he has a lot more plans for him and spares his life then and there. So Vandiyathevan again heads towards Kanchipuram from there. Now we saw that Arunmozhivarman has been nursed by the monks in the Buddhist monastery in Nagapattinam. He's had a very high temperature for the past 3 days and he's been sleeping the whole time. After 3 days, he opens his eyes and gets back to his normal state. And after this only, he gets to know that Pungurli and Sendanavadan are the people who came and admitted him there and all the other things that have happened behind. So since he's feeling better right now, he decides to get away from there and bring himself to the king in Tanjavur. But the monk says to Arunmozhivarman that there are two women waiting for him in Anaimangalam and he should go and meet them there. And so Arunmozhivarman leaves the Buddhist monastery in Nagapattinam along with Pungurli and Sendanavadan in their boat. We saw saw that Vanati has headed towards Nagapattinam also, right? But what happens in between is she is intruded by Aniruddha Brahmarayar, and he convinces her of knowing the location of Arulmozhivarman and asks her to reveal him. But she decides not to do it, and he threatens her by saying that she'll be thrown away by the elephant that was standing nearby to her death. Vanati decides not to give away for anything, and she just stands there with all the guts that she can muster. The elephant comes, lifts her with its trunk and lifts her up, and when she goes up she just faints and thinks that she has died after she's been thrown by the elephant. The author also tells us at this point that this is the last time we'll be seeing Vanati fainting in the entire series. After fainting, Vanati thinks that she has died, and when she opens her eyes she gets to see Kundavai on whose lap her head is resting. After she wakes up, she gets to know that she was not actually thrown by the elephant, but Aniruddha Brahmarayar just tricked her and made her go along with Kundavai. And when she asks Kundavai where they are going, Kundavai tells her that they are going towards Anaimangalam so that she can also go to the Buddhist monastery afterwards if she ever wants to. They head towards Anaimangalam, and finally Kundavai meets Arulmozhivarman and they have this huge discussion. Kundavai tells about all the stories that she had heard from Sundara Sorar about his other family, and Arulmozhivarman also tells her about the women who saved his life as a child, saving his life multiple times in Sri Lanka also. They come to this conclusion that the other woman who cannot speak as well as hear is the first person whom their father had kids with, and because of this Nandini turns out to be their elder sister, but they are not able to understand why Nandini was separated from them and grew up without any parents at a different home. At the same time, they are also able to understand that there are three people who can give the answers for all these questions, and those three people are Sundara Sorar, who's their father, Aniruddha Brahmarayar, who's the minister, and finally our beloved Nambi himself. When Kundavai and Arulmozhivarman are talking with each other in order to provide them with some privacy, Vanati goes near the lake and she's just wandering around there. During this time, a bull comes and attacks her, and the reason behind this is that Poongozhi and Sendramudan have been waiting after dropping Arulmozhivarman at that place, and Poongozhi does not like Kundavai as well as Vanati because Poongozhi has this huge respect and love for Arulmozhivarman. At the same time, the other person who loves Arulmozhivarman is Vanati, and she is supported by Kundavai. So in all this anger, she just flicks a stone at the bull, and that bull is the one which ends up attacking Vanati. And Vanati screams from this attack and she tries to run away. While she is trying to run away, she slips and falls into the water. On hearing her scream, Arulmozhivarman goes to her rescue, and both Kundavai as well as Arulmozhivarman thought that she has fainted again and fallen inside the river. And when Arulmozhivarman finally lifts her up out of the water, Vanati starts laughing, and when Arulmozhivarman asks her the reason why she is laughing, she tells him that he ended up being saved by two women two different times while he fell into the Kaveri river as well as inside the sea, and finally he has ended up saving a woman from the water for a change, and she is the reason behind that change, and starts laughing again. On hearing this, Arulmozhivarman also starts laughing, and on seeing both of them, Kundavai also starts laughing. Hearing the laughter from these three people, Sendramudan as well as Poongozhi also start laughing. With their laughter, there is this beautiful ambience that is provided by nature itself, and with that we come to the end of the third book inside the Ponniyin Selvan series. The fourth book starts with following Aditya Karikalan, whom we left off in the first book. We saw Aditya Karikalan only towards the end of the first book, and after that we did not follow him at all. We just got to know of his presence in the second and third books. So here Aditya Karikalan is headed towards Kadambur along with Parthivendra Pallavar, Kandamaran, who is the son of Kadambur Sambhuvarayar, and Aditya Karikalan's grandfather, who is the father of Vanavan Mahadevi, that is his mother, along with his army, and they are marching towards Kadambur because of the invitation that was received from Nandini by Aditya Karikalan. Now while they are on their way to Kadambur, Aditya Karikalan's grandfather says some news to him that was received by him because of his sources, and the two news that he puts into Aditya Karikalan ears are that the Parvetarayars are planning to get Aditya Karikalan married to Manimegalai, who is the younger sister of Kandamaran. And the second news is that the Parvetarayars are planning to split the Sora dynasty into two parts and give one part to be ruled by him and the other part to be ruled by Madurandagan. After getting to know these two things said by his grandfather, Aditya Karikalan and his grandfather have a conversation, at the end of which Aditya Karikalan reveals his familiarity with Nandini, saying that when he killed Veerapandiyan, she was the lady who tried to save Veerapandiyan from his rage, and even then he ended up killing Veerapandiyan, and that has been sitting as a memory in his mind very strong for the past 2 years. And his grandfather also does not come along with him to Kadambur because he decides to get back to Kanchipuram and get together some troops, because he knows that if the Parvetarayars' plans succeed and if they end up splitting the Sora kingdom into two parts, the rightful heir to the throne, Aditya Karikalan, will not be given that much importance, and in order to avoid this and to save his grandson from the problems that might be caused to him by the Parvetarayars, he goes back to Kanchipuram and tries to gather some troops. But he does not say this to Aditya Karikalan, he just says that he'll be going back to Kanchipuram and not coming to Kadambur, and he goes back. So Aditya Karikalan and his group of people head towards Kadambur again. After this, we go forward and follow Vandiyathevan and Nambi again. In the ending of book 3, we saw that the savior group of the Pandyas had tied Vandiyathevan to a tree and left him as such, and Nambi was the person who went and ended up saving Vandiyathevan. So both of them have started traveling together in order to deliver the messages to Aditya Karikalan. While taking their journey on their way, what happens is while they are crossing a river, there comes a flood, and because of this they lose all of their possessions. So they decide to make use of Nambi's talent and debate with some Saivites and get the money from them in order to make use of for their travel. During this time, what happens is at a night both of them stay at an Ayyanar temple, and while they are staying there, what happens is there seems to be some movement in a horse's statue by the temple, and both of them go and hide towards some place safe so that they can see what is happening there. What they get to witness is that Idambankari, who is a person from this Pandya savior group, moves the horse's statue and gets into it somehow and starts traveling inside there. They are not sure where he is headed towards and what's happening there, so they decide to leave Nambi there as a watch person to keep an eye out for things that are happening inside the temple. And Vandiyathevan follows Idambankari, and both of them travel in a tunnel route which ends in the Kadambur palace inside a room where all the animals that were hunted by the people inside the Kadambur palace have been stuffed and preserved over years. After Vandiyathevan gets into the room, Idambankari is not there, so he just goes forward and investigates what's there in the room, and accidentally what happens is when he's trying to hold the head of an elephant which is available beside a wall, he ends up opening a secret door near to the place where the elephant's head is, and when he looks through that door he sees a room which is being readied, and in that room we get to see our one main character who is introduced in this book, that is Manimegalai. And the thing that Manimegalai is doing in that room is that she is making it ready for Nandini, because Periya Pazhuvettarayar and Nandini are coming towards Kadambur in order to stay there and welcome Aditya Karikalan because he's been invited there by Nandini. Now Manimegalai has developed this love towards Vandiyathevan because Kandamaran has said a lot of great things about Vandiyathevan before, and because of this she has developed a love for Vandiyathevan. After this, what happens is Kandamaran says that Vandiyathevan is the one who stabbed him in the back, so Manimegalai is totally confused of whether to love Vandiyathevan or not because she's not sure what has happened properly. During this time itself, what happens is, after all the people that have cleaned the room have gone out, she is standing by the mirror and seeing her face, and this mirror is exactly opposite the wall on which the secret door has opened. And when Vandiyathevan is looking through that door, that's the same time when Manimegalai is looking at her face in the mirror also. So she ends up seeing Vandiyathevan who's there in the wall. When she turns around, the wall just seems normal, but she knows that there is the secret passageway in that wall, and there is also the sound which keeps coming out from the room behind the secret wall. So she asks one of her helpers to come with a lamp, and both of them get in there and check what's happening, but there is nothing in there. After they come out, Manimegalai is again alone in that room and she hears sounds again. So when she goes forward and checks out the room again, she sees Idambankari there, who's also a cleaning person inside the palace itself. So she decides that he's just cleaning the room so that it looks clean for when the Pazhuvettarayars come and stay there. Vandiyathevan understands that Idambankari has actually found out that he has followed him and he's only trying to capture Vandiyathevan. Because of this, he reveals himself to Manimegalai, and when both of them have a conversation, he brings it to her knowledge that he was the person who saved Kandamaran and not actually the person who stabbed him in the back. Because of this, what happens is Manimegalai ends up saving Vandiyathevan and makes him escape from the palace. When Vandiyathevan tries to get out of the palace, he ends up on the top of a wall, and on the other side of the wall, when he tries to get down, there is this dog which starts barking at him, and the dog also seems very ferocious. Because of this, he is confused of whether to get inside the palace or go out there, because if he gets inside the palace, he'll be captured by these people, and if he gets outside the palace, he might be attacked by the dog. So he chooses the dog and tries to jump down there, during which Devaralan also comes out, and the dog ends up being Devaralan's dog. When Devaralan and the dog are trying to attack Vandiyathevan, there is this person who comes behind Devaralan and strikes him with a stick, and that person ends up being Nambi, who has come to save Vandiyathevan from this group. Both of them, in order to escape from them, run into this forest near the Kadambur palace, and while they are inside the forest, they see Periya Pazhuvettarayar and Nandini coming to the Kadambur palace, and Vandi keeps on staring at Nandini, and because of this, Nandini feels something and she also turns and sees Nambi being inside the forest. Periya Pazhuvettarayar sees that Nandini sees someone, and so he sends some people with the help of Kadambur Sambhavarayar with horses inside the forest. What happens is Vandiyathevan and Nambi end up getting down those two people on the horses and taking the horses for themselves in order to head towards Aditya Karikalan. Both Vandiyathevan and Nambi somehow end up reaching Aditya Karikalan and try to deliver the news to him. During this time, what happens is both Parthibendra Pallavar as well as Kandamaran try to turn Aditya Karikalan against Vandiyathevan, saying that he was the person who actually stabbed Kandamaran in the back, and Vandiyathevan ends up tackling him by asking what he was actually doing in the treasury of the Pazhuvettarayars when he was being stabbed in the back, and for this Kandamaran does not have any answer. Parthibendra Pallavar says that he must be the person who must have ended up killing Arunmozhivarman, because Arunmozhivarman jumped into the sea only to save Vandiyathevan, and that's the reason why he is not found until now. For this, Vandiyathevan asked Parthibendra Pallavar why he did not end up jumping after Arunmozhivarman in order to save Arunmozhivarman if he is so much concerned about him. For this, Parthibendra Pallavar does not have any answer. Seeing both of them at the brim of a fight, what happens is Aditya Karikalan separates them and sends Kandamaran, Parthibendran and one half of the troop to go in the front, and he says that he'll come along with Vandiyathevan and Nambi after them. Only after they leave, Vandiyathevan and Nambi end up telling all their news to Aditya Karikalan, and Aditya Karikalan understands that Nandini is actually his sister, and he tries to make his mind and arrange everything in proper order. After delivering the news that he he has to deliver, Nambi also gets back to Tanjavur again. So Vandiyathevan and Aditya Karikalan head towards the Kadambur palace, and Aditya Karikalan is welcomed by the Kadambur people in a very grand way. After getting into the Kadambur palace, Aditya Karikalan takes everything under his control and he sends Periya Pazhuvettarayar back to Tanjavur in order to bring back Madurandagan to Kadambur so that they can settle these disputes for once. He does all these because he knows that the Pazhuvettarayar's plan is to split the Soja kingdom. At the same time, they have also planned to marry him off to Manimekalai. Nandini sees all these things that are being done by Aditya Karikalan and group. So when Periya Pazhuvettarayar comes and asks her to come along with him to Tanjavur, she says that she'll stay there and see all the things that are being done by Aditya Karikalan so that the Pazhuvettarayars are not played in any way by the Cholas. And since her reasoning sounds strong, Periya Pazhuvettarayar also decides to go alone to Tanjavur and he heads towards there. While all these things have been happening in Kadambur, let's also see what has been parallelly happening in Tanjavur and the other parts of the story. Now what Aniruddha Brahmarayar in Tanjavur has done is that he has taken the palanquin of Nandini and also some cash from the Pazhuvettarayars in order to retrieve the women who cannot talk, whose name is revealed as Mandagini in this book, to be captured from Kodikkarai and brought back to Tanjavur. So in order to bring her back from Kodikkarai to Tanjavur, Aditya Brahmarayar soldiers end up tying Rakammal, who is the sister-in-law of Pungurli, to a tree and end up forcefully taking Mandagini from Kodikkarai towards Tanjavur, and they use Nandini's palanquin in order to transport her from there to here so that there is no doubt or interference in their way from Kodikkarai towards Tanjavur. After getting to know this, Pungurli and Sendanamudan also follow the same route in which the palanquin goes, and when they see Nandini's palanquin, they think that the person inside the palanquin is actually Nandini, and the palanquin has actually stopped for the night because there's been a huge storm that has been brewing over the entire Chola kingdom on that particular night. And please remember the storm because this storm is going to play a very great influence for the rest of the story. When they try to see who's inside the palanquin, they find out that it is not Nandini but Mandagini herself inside the palanquin. So Pungurli does something and makes Mandagini escape from the palanquin, and she ends up getting inside the palanquin instead of her. And these people who are also supposed to bring Mandagini to the Tanjavur palace end up bringing Pungurli to the palace, and when Aniruddha Brahmarayar sees that, he is totally astonished of what has happened, and when he asks Pungurli, she says that she did it because Mandagini was taken by force and it is not a right thing. In order to save her, she says that she got into the palanquin and made her escape. While all these are happening, Kundavai also gets into the Tanjavur palace and vouches for Pungurli, saying that she is the person who ended up saving Arulmozhivarman from the sea. She is not a bad person, and whatever she did might not be in a bad favor for the nation as a whole. In between all these, Nambi, who has headed towards Tanjavur, also reaches there and brings a news that Mandagini has not gone anywhere, but she is just in Sendanamudan's house because Sendanamudan's mother and Mandagini are sisters, and that's one of the reasons why both of them cannot speak as well as here. After getting to know this news, Aniruddha Brahmarayar sends Pungurli as well as Nambi in order to bring Mandagini to the palace, because if everyone go and try to bring her there, she'll again get frightened and run away from there, and it will be even more difficult to find her. So Nambi and Pungurli head towards Sendanamudan's house in order to get Mandagini to the palace. After they leave, Kundavai and Aniruddha Brahmarayar have a long conversation, and Kundavai explains what all has happened and how they have saved Arulmozhivarman and have kept him safe in the Sudamani Viharam in Nagapattinam as of now. Aniruddha Brahmarayar also says Kundavai why he ordered to bring Mandagini from Kodikkarai to Tanjavur, because if Sundara Solar ends up seeing Mandagini, he'll get better and that might solve some problems, because he knew that Mandagini was alive for the past 25 years, but because of some reason he has said to Sundara Solar that she has died, and since he is the reason behind all of these complications, he decided to bring it to a stop. After their conversation, Nambi and Pungurli come back to the palace, but Mandagini is not along with them. They say that Mandagini came along with them, but because of some commotion after getting into the palace, they lost Mandagini in the crowd, and in order to find her, they just brought it to their attention. While they are discussing how to find Mandagini, what we see is that Mandagini has actually seen Ravidasan and Edumankari in the crowd, and she has followed them in the crowd. They end up going and meeting Vasuki, who is the helper woman that takes Vandiyathevan to Nandini in the first book, and from her they get a key to the treasury of the Pazhuvettarayars and food enough for a person to last for 2 days and head towards the treasury. Mandagini ends up following them, and she finds out their plan. Their plan is to use the secret passageway that is available inside the treasury, which ends in an open space from which it will be very easy to attack anyone inside the room of the king. After letting Edumankari what he has to do after 2 days, and during the same day, what happens is when Edumankari is not noticing, Mandagini takes that secret passageway and ends up getting into Sundara Solar's room via his ceiling. During that time, Sundara Solar has been blabbering in his sleep as usual, because he has been thinking that Mandagini has died for the past 25 years, and during this time he feels someone near his head by the cot, and when he asks who's there, Mandagini is not able to hear him, but since she can sense some movement, she comes in front of him, and after seeing her, he's confused of whether she's actually a human being or a ghost, and he starts shouting, and he also ends up throwing a lamp at her. The lamp does not hit her but just falls down on the ground. On hearing that sound as well as his sound, all the people who have been discussing how to find Mandagini in the nearby room come inside Sundara Solar's room, and when they see Mandagini, they somehow tackle her and make her stay there. Pungurli tells her what are their intentions using the sign language, and Mandagini also stays there and abides by the rules. Kundavai and Aniruddha Brahmarayar at last tell everything that has happened to Sundara Sorar, and they expect one type of reaction in a positive way from Sundara Sorar, but he reacts in the opposite way, saying that he wants to get Mandagini out of the palace because he does not want to see her. But Vanamadevi, who is his wife, ends up telling Kundavai to take Mandagini to her care and dress her up in a proper way and bring her to Sundara Sorar so that she will be presentable to him. During this time only, Aniruddha Brahmarayar also tells Sundara Sorar that he has been keeping this as a secret from him because he promised Mandagini, after she was saved by some person on the sea, that he should not reveal the presence of her in the world to Sundara Sorar. After Kundavai dresses up her and brings her to Sundara Sorar, Mandagini looks exactly like Nandini, and everything somehow falls into place for everyone. So they decide to bring Arulmozhivarman from the Sudamani Viharam in Nagapattinam to Tanjavur very soon. During the same night, what happens is Mandagini takes the same secret route through which she came in, and following her, Pungoli also goes. While she was being dressed up, Mandagini actually got lost once more, and when they found her, she was actually trying to break the hands of a Ravan sculpture, and the thing that she was actually trying to do was to break those two arms and block the secret passageway so that anyone cannot come and harm Sundara Sorar according to their plan. In order to make it possible again, she takes the secret route again, and following her, Pungoli also goes, with both of them getting into the secret passageway. The part of the story in Tanjavur comes to an end. Now we get back to Kadambur and see what's going to happen there. The day after Periya Pazhuvettarayar has left for Tanjavur, Aditya Karikalan and his group of men decide to go for hunting in the forest nearby. At the same day, during which Manimegalai and Nandini decide to go for the small island in the middle of a lake and play by the water there. Aditya Karikalan and his group see that Manimegalai, Nandini and their group of women have also headed towards the island during the same time, but they do not go in that direction, even though both of those places are located very near to each other. When the hunting takes place, Aditya Karikalan ends up hunting so many animals, but there comes a point during which there are two boars which come inside the forest, and both of these boars are very aggressive in their nature. When they also try to attack them with arrows, it does not prove to be of any use. Finally, Aditya Karikalan ends up killing one boar alone, and the other boar ends up attacking a tiger, and the attacked tiger gets away from there. Doing a lot of things, Vandiyathevan as well as Aditya Karikalan end up killing that other boar also. And only after that they remember that the injured tiger has actually escaped, and it can be very dangerous for any people who are around that area. And only after that they realize that the women are also just there in the nearby place in the island inside the lake. So they head towards the place where the women are in their horses. While they get there, they see that Nandini as well as Manimegalai are playing in the water by a side, and on the branch of a tree near that place the tiger is sitting there and is trying to attack them. Out of nowhere an arrow comes and attacks the tiger, because of which the tiger ends up falling on the exact place where Manimegalai and Nandini are. Manimegalai does not suffer any injuries, but Nandini gets hurt on her shoulder. Aditya Karikalan and Vandiyathevan end up saving both of them, and Aditya Karikalan takes Manimegalai and brings her out of the water, during the same time which Nandini is saved by Vandiyathevan. During this time only, Aditya Karikalan also notes that the tiger has actually not died and it is just injured and swimming again inside the water, so he orders Vandiyathevan to go and behead the tiger and bring its head. And Manimegalai also goes in order to bring to the knowledge of the helper women to make some food for all the people who are actually available there. Since there is no one else there right now, Nandini makes use of the opportunity and tells Aditya Karikalan that Vandiyathevan has actually had an eye on her, and he is concocting a lot of lies in order to bring anyone who is trying to get towards her away from her. Aditya Karikalan also just told her before she said this that she is his elder sister, and because of this every feeling that he had for her before is completely wrong. After hearing the false accusation on Vandiyathevan done by Nandini, Aditya Karikalan believes that she is right and he starts doubting Vandiyathevan. After Vandiyathevan comes with the head of the tiger, Nandini tells a lot of things to him and attacks him verbally in a very subtle way. Vandiyathevan's heart is very much broken because he has not done anything wrong as of now. During the same time which Manimegalai also comes there, and she has heard everything that has said by Nandini towards Vandiyathevan, and she decides to be in support of him whatever happens. So we saw in the middle of the story that there was a storm, right? Because of the storm, what happens is the water level inside the lake starts rising, and because of this the boat in which Nandini and Manimegalai came to the island gets swept away in the water. When they are thinking of how to escape, Manimegalai says to them that her father must have heard about the storm and he will send some kind of boat or ship in order to rescue them from the island. And just as she said, a rescue ship comes and all of them are rescued from the island by them, and with that the story inside the fourth book comes to an end. Before getting into the story, let's just have a look at where our different characters are located, because at the end of the fourth book each and every one of our main characters has been spread out across Tamil Nadu in various locations. First we'll see where Arulmozhivarman is. Arulmozhivarman is alone there in Nagapattinam in the Sudamani Viharam, which is the Buddhist monastery which I talked about in the fourth book. Then we see Aditya Karikalan, Vandiyathevan, Nandini and Kandamaran in Kadambur. Kundavai, Vanati, Nambi and Aniruddha Brahmarayar are there in Tanjavur, and finally we see Mandagini and Pungoli alone in the treasury of the Pazhuvettarayars after having followed Soman Sambavan, who is hiding there in order to kill Sundara Sorar. In my summary for the fourth book, I said that the person who is hiding in the treasury is Idumankari, but that is not his name, that is just my mistake, I am sorry for that. The person who was hiding inside the treasury and followed by Mandagini and Pungoli in book 4 was Soman Sambavan, not Idumankari. Now let's get into the story right away. So in the story, we are starting with Arulmozhivarman, who's there in Nagapattinam in the Buddhist monastery. And what happens now is, all the people inside Nagapattinam get to know that Arulmozhivarman is there because of Rakamal, who has spread this rumor that Arulmozhivarman is being converted into Buddhism from Saivism by the Buddhist monks inside the monastery. And because of this, all the people from Nagapattinam go towards the monastery and form kind of a strike in front of the monastery. During this time, what happens is, Rakamal's husband, that is Poonguzhali's brother Murugayan alone, is allowed inside the monastery, and with the help of him, Arulmozhivarman plans to escape from Nagapattinam and head towards Tanjavur alone in a boat, since Murugayan is a sailor and he can easily drive and direct the boat for Arulmozhivarman. During the same time, what happens is, because of the storm which we saw in the 4th book, floods have been caused in various parts of the Chola Empire, and even because of that storm, what happens now is, the level of water in the sea near Nagapattinam has risen abundantly, and because of this, there are huge tides and waves which are coming and attacking the shore. And since the Buddhist monastery is also located near the shore, the waves come and hit there also. During this time, everyone goes and flees, and when Arulmozhivarman is traveling along with Murugayan in the boat, he just thinks about something and asks him to return the boat back towards the monastery. And when they head towards the monastery, they get to know that the head priest inside the monastery alone has been there, and all the other priests have been sent in order to help the people. When Arulmozhivarman gets into the monastery, he finds that the head priest is holding on to the heads of a huge Buddha statue, which is almost entirely submerged in water, so that the Buddhist monk is already inside the water, and in order to save him, Arulmozhivarman and Murugayan rescue him from the water and get him out of there. On their way out of the Buddhist monastery, both of them head towards this place called Nandi Mandapam, where Arulmozhivarman and Kundavai met in the 3rd book, and on top of that mandapam, they see this small goat calf which is stuck there, and the chief priest ends up saving that calf. After all this happens, what Arulmozhivarman decides is that he is going to go in disguise and go alone towards Tanjavur, and in order to make this possible, he takes the help of Murugayan alone. So Arulmozhivarman disguises himself as a salesperson, and he's headed towards Tanjavur through Nagaipattinam, where he is revealed by Rakamal in kind of an accidental way. She sets up everything and properly exposes him and makes it look like an accident. Because of this, all the people get to know that Arulmozhivarman is there, and because of this, they decide that he should stay with them for the next 2 days because of the storm, and after that he'll be taken with all the people like a procession towards Tanjavur by them itself. Since he cannot refuse this, he accepts to that and takes his abode at the Chola palace that is available inside Nagapattinam itself. And after reaching there, from the treasury available inside the palace as well as the food storage that is available there, everyone is served with food as well as money according to their needs. So the plan of Arulmozhivarman for now is that he'll stay there for 2 days, and on the 3rd day he'll be going on an elephant back towards Tanjavur, and all of these people will come along with him like a procession. Even though Arulmozhivarman does not want all these people in order to come along with him, there is no other way he can reach towards Tanjavur because he has been exposed right now. So he accepts the position that he is put in right now, and he decides to go on elephant back after 2 days, so that the people are also satisfied serving him for the next 2 days. Leaving Arulmozhivarman's part of the story here itself, we are going to go and see what has happened to Periya Pazhuvettarayar, who left Kadambur under the order of Aditya Karikalan in order to get Madurandagan from Tanjavur to Kadambur. And Periya Pazhuvettarayar and his group of men, while on their way on a ship towards Tanjavur, experience a flood because of the storm that was caused again. And because of this, the floods in the Kollidam river have been very high, and the ship in which they were travelling has been shattered because of the winds as well as the refuse and all debris that was washed up with the flood water inside the river. The ship has shattered, and the group of men who came with Periya Pazhuvettarayar have been stranded on one side of the river shore, and Periya Pazhuvettarayar has been stranded alone on the other shore of the river. But no one knows where Periya Pazhuvettarayar has gone, because he is the only person that was swept away alone, and all the others somehow got together and reached the other side of the shore. Now the place that Periya Pazhuvettarayar reaches has this Durga temple, and in the Durga temple there is some prasadam as well as some clothes that have been left by the people who were worshipping there when the floods came. And because of the availability of food as well as clothes, Periya Pazhuvettarayar eats what's available and also takes the clothes that are available and changes into some dry new clothes. Since he's been swept in the river flood and been through a lot in his journey, he's totally tired, so he just falls asleep there. While he's sleeping there, sometime after the sunset, there is this voice of someone calling for another person named Ravidasan. And after hearing this, what Periya Pazhuvettarayar gets to remember is that the magician who was actually coming and meeting Nandini in the Pazhavur palace was named Ravidasan, and this person who's actually calling Ravidasan is Devaralan, whom we saw in the previous books. After seeing Periya Pazhuvettarayar having lied there, Devaralan gets terrified and he just runs away from there, and Periya Pazhuvettarayar also follows him without his knowledge itself. After travelling through a long distance, Periya Pazhuvettarayar sees Devaralan meeting this magician named Ravidasan, and both of them discuss their plans that they've made with Nandini together, and all of these have been heard by Periya Pazhuvettarayar right now. Now the plan of the Pandya group, which includes Ravidasan, Devaralan et al., is that all three people from the Chola Empire who are to be made kings, Sundara Solan, after him Aditya Karikalan, and after him his younger brother Arulmozhivarman, all three will be killed simultaneously on the same day by 3 different people as per their plan. The first person who is going to kill Aditya Karikalan is Nandini in Kadambur with the sword that she has with her. The next one is Sundara Sorar, who is going to be killed by Soman Sambavan, who is already hiding in the treasury. But these people do not know that Mandagini and Pungoli have been following him right now. And finally, Arulmozhivarman will be killed by the elephant tamer, who is to take him from Nagapattinam towards Tanjavur. And in order to make this possible, they are going to replace one man of them in place of the elephant tamer, and he is going to poison Arulmozhivarman and kill him right there. Because of this, all 3 people who are either in the Chola throne or in line for the Chola throne will be killed off. And after hearing this plan only, Periya Pazhuvettariyar understands that Nandini has married him only for this purpose, and he has been used as an instrument by her for all these past 3 years in order to make all these things possible. So he decides to go forward and kill Nandini in Kadambur and also alert Arulmozhivarman as well as Sundara Sorar in order to save their lives. After hearing the plan and deciding all this, Periya Pazhuvettariyar reveals himself to Ravidasan as well as Devaralan, and he tries to tackle them both, but he is not able to do so because there's this huge mandapam over there which has been ruined because of the flood there, and both of them end up pushing that mandapam over Periya Pazhuvettariyar and escaping from there. Since Periya Pazhuvettariyar is a man of huge strength, and since he's been to many battles and has 67 scars on his body, he somehow manages to shrug off the ruins of the mandapam from there and escapes from there towards Kudandai. And in Kudandai, there is this astrologer through whom Periya Pazhuvettariyar decides to send messages to Sundara Sorar as well as Arulmozhivarman and save them, and he is to go by himself and save Aditya Karikalan from Nandini by killing her. Now, after reaching the astrologer's house, Periya Pazhuvettariyar sees that there is this royal chariot in front of the astrologer's hut, but he decides to just get in there and deliver his message in order to save all these 3 people at once. But what he doesn't know is that Kundavai and Vanati have come from Tanjavur to Kudandai in order to visit the same astrologer, because the previous night what has happened is Mandagini and Pungoli have slept along with them in the same place, but the next morning both of them have been gone missing and they have not been able to find them at all. Just in order to get a solution for this one, Kundavai and Vanati have come towards the astrologer in order to get some kind of advice from him. During this same time only, Periya Pazhuvettariyar also ends up going there, and after he ends up saying all these things to the astrologer, Kundavai and Vanati have been hiding in another room at the same time and listen to all these things. After Kundavai reveals herself, Periya Pazhuvettariyar says all these things to her also and makes her deliver both of these messages to her father as well as younger brother, and he is headed towards Kadambur in order to save Aditya Karikalan and kill Nandini. After he says this only, Kundavai reveals to him that Nandini is his own elder sister and all the love story between Sundara Sorar and Mandagini from the past. After giving his word to Kundavai that he will not kill Nandini, he just leaves from there and heads towards Kadambur. After Periya Pazhuvettariyar leaves to Kadambur, 2 of our other main characters come towards the astrologer's house also. Of these, the first one is Nambi, who has been tailing Kundavai as a spy, and he has been sent by Aniruddha Brahmaraya in order for her protection. And the other main character is Pungoli, who comes from the treasury of the Pazhuvettariyars, and she is sent by Mandagini because Mandagini gets this feeling that she is not going to live for a longer time, and so she sends Pungoli in order to get Arulmozhivarman to her so that she can see him once at last before closing her eyes. As of now, nothing has happened to Mandagini, but she just has this feeling, and because of this, she sends away Pungoli, and Pungoli also, in order to satisfy her aunt's needs, goes towards Tanjavur in order to bring Arulmozhivarman. And for this, she has to go across Kudandai, and that's where she meets Kundavai, Vanati as well as Nambi. During the meeting, Pungoli also ends up teasing Vanati continuously for her desire of wanting to marry Arulmozhivarman and taking the throne. And since Vanati cannot hear all these words that are said by Pungoli, she makes a promise right then and there that whatever happens in the future, she will not step on the throne and sit on it. Hearing this, everyone gets shocked. During the same time, what happens is the Kaveri river also floods up because of the storm, and during the same time, all other neighboring parts of the Sora Empire have also been affected by floods. Without knowing this, Kundavai and Vanadi have come towards Kudandai and also the other 2 main characters. So the flood hits there, and since it's just a hut, everything is destroyed in the place, and somehow they all escape towards a higher raising. And Vanati is the last person who's to be lifted to the high raising, and since there are only 2 other women who are Kundavai and Pungoli, they lend their hand to Vanati so that she can be lifted by them. Since Vanati is not okay with everything that Pungoli has said, she shrugs away Pungoli's arm and she just falls into the flood water. Somehow she catches onto the roof of the hut and she just stays afloat on the water. In order to save her, the astrologer sends his assistant in order to take a small boat so that all of them can be rescued. By this time, what happens is the flood keeps on increasing, and because of this, the roof on which Vanati has been sitting has moved away. After the boat comes, Pungoli says that she can direct the boat well since she is already a sailor woman, and she just gets into the boat along with the assistant. Both of them head towards Vanati, and what has happened right now is the roof has also disintegrated in the water, and because of this, Vanati is already in the water and she gets to see that there is also this crocodile which has been come along with the water because of the flood, and after seeing that, she has climbed onto a tree and she is just sitting on its branches. While Pungurli and the assistant head towards the tree on the boat, Pungurli sees that Vanati is there on the tree, but she does not see the crocodile and she just jumps into the water in order to go forward and save Vanati from the tree. Since the flood is high, the boat cannot be stopped and it also keeps on moving. Only after understanding what Vanati is signaling, Pungurli sees that there is this crocodile which is just a few feet away from her. So she just swims her way through the water and Vanati is trying to lift her up out of the water so that she can be saved. Leaving Pungurli and Vanati here, we are going to go and see what has happened to Arulmozhivarman right now. He has decided to go on elephant back the next day towards Tanjavur, but what happens right there on the next morning is that the elephant tamer has gone missing, and instead of him, another person heads towards the elephant saying that he is the tamer, and on recognizing this, the elephant just lifts him up and throws him away into a pond. And because of this incident, everyone thinks that the elephant has gone wild, and using this opportunity, what Arulmozhivarman does is he just pushes the seat that is available on top of the elephant after signaling something to Murugayan and gets on its back. Since everyone is in this kind of turmoil, no one notices that Arulmozhivarman has got on the elephant's back and has gone away. And at the same time, since everyone is thinking that the elephant has gone wild, when it starts running in the crowd, everyone just parts their ways and makes it leave that place. We already saw in the second book that Arulmozhivarman can control elephants really well. Because of this foreshadowing, what is happening right now is that he is directing the elephant alone towards Tanjavur, and this is actually the thing that Arulmozhivarman wanted, that is to go to Tanjavur alone without any kind of procession so that he can reach there quickly. Since no one is there enough to come in the way of an elephant, the elephant just keeps on going on a high pace towards Tanjavur, and Arulmozhivarman is also happy because he knows that he can reach Tanjavur in the intended time that he was planning to because of the elephant, and he just keeps on going. There is no interference in his way at all because everyone is frightened of the elephant and no one is going to try and stop him. Now let's get back to Vanati and Pungurli, who are stuck in the flood, and a crocodile is also trying to take Pungurli out of Vanati's grasp, right? What happens right now is when they are trying to save each other from the crocodile, there is this huge trumpeting sound of an elephant which just tears the air, and on hearing this sound, the crocodile just runs away. Both of them hear the sound, but they don't know that the crocodile has gone away. The person who comes on the elephant right there is Arulmozhivarman himself. We saw in the beginning that in order to reach Nagaipatnam, Pungurli has to cross Kudandai and only go there. So in order to reach Tanjavur also, Arulmozhivarman has to cross Kudandai, and only on his way he sees both of these women in distress. So after hearing the elephant's trumpet sound, the crocodile just flees away, and Arulmozhivarman ends up saving both Pungurli as well as Vanati. So all three of them decide to go towards Tanjavur on the elephant back itself, since it will be easier for them to go in the flood, who are waiting in that high-rise place from the flood. Now Arulmozhivarman and Pungurli as well as Vanati are travelling on elephant back towards Tanjavur, but what has happened in Tanjavur right now is that Kodumbalur Periyavelar, who is the uncle of Vanati, has this thought that Sundara Soran has been imprisoned in Tanjavur by the Pazhuvettarayars, and in order to go and rescue him, he has gathered his army and he has covered the entire surrounding of the Tanjavur palace, and Chinna Pazhuvettarayar is the only person who is available right there, and he takes protection of the palace and does not allow anyone inside the palace. During this time only, Arulmozhivarman along with the two women come on his elephant's back, and since it is the night time, on seeing the elephant, everyone thinks that the man who is sitting on the elephant is the tamesman, and since Vanati is also available in these three people, she gets access into the palace, and along with the elephant and the two other people, they head into the palace with proper permission. Only after they get into the palace, Chinna Pazhuvettarayar gets to know that it is not an elephant tamer but Arulmozhivarman himself. So Arulmozhivarman and Vanati alone head towards Sundara Soran, and the main task that Vanati has in mind right now is to go and deliver the message that was given by Periya Pazhuvettarayar to Chinna Pazhuvettarayar as well as Sundara Sorar. Pungurli alone stays outside along with Chinna Pazhuvettarayar because she does not want to get in there, since it is going to be kind of a private and personal moment between Mandagini and Arulmozhivarman. While both of them are waiting outside, there is this huge screeching sound that is heard from inside the palace, and both of them just end up running inside the palace because of that. After getting into Sundara Sorar's room, what they witness is that Mandagini has been injured by this huge spear and she is lying on the ground with blood oozing out of her. And what has happened right now is someone who tried to attack Sundara Soran on his bed launched a spear, and on seeing this, Mandagini put herself in front of Sundara Soran and got the spear instead of him. She is lying down right now and everyone is totally astonished, and her scream was the thing which Pungurli and Chinna Pazhuvettarayar heard from outside. After they get inside and witness this, what happens is there is this pot from the ceiling which is dropped on the lamp inside the room, and everything just gets dark, and inside that darkness they hear the screaming of another woman who's Vanamagadevi, and Vanamagadevi is the wife of Sundara Sorar. Everyone thinks that something has happened to her, and when lights are brought inside the room again, what they see is that there's this knife which has been stabbed on the cot on which Sundara Sorar was lying, and on the cot Sundara Sorar is not seen to be there. What they see right now is a very astonishing sight, and it is that Sundara Sorar has got down from the bed and he's having Mandagini on his lap. The assassin, that is Soman Sambavan, has thought that since Sundara Sorar cannot walk, he can just stab him with the knife and just escape from there. He has stabbed on the cot and escaped, and during his escape only he has also dashed Vanamagadevi, and because of this she has screamed. Sundara Sorar's legs have been paralyzed for the past 3 years, and only after seeing seeing that Mandagini has sacrificed herself in order to save him, his legs start working and he ends up taking her on his lap during her death, and Mandagini finally dies after seeing Arulmozhivarman for one last time according to her wish, and she leaves her life on the lap of her first lover, who is Sundara Soda. During the same time, Chinna Pazhuvettiyarar has been very hugely insulted because the palace has been under his protection, and only under his protection the assassination attempt on the king has been taken, and if Mandagini had not been there, he would have been killed. And Poongozhili also wants to avenge the death of her aunt by killing the person who actually murdered her. So Chinna Pazhuvettiyarar as well as Poongozhili head towards the treasury of the Pazhuvettiyaras because Poongozhili knows that this person was down there. But the person whom they find there where they head towards the treasury is Madurandagan. And in order to save Madurandagan, Chinna Pazhuvettiyarar takes him away from there, and during this time only Madurandagan tells him that there's this other person also whom he saw there, and that person told to Madurandagan that he knows some secret about Madurandagan's past life. Poongozhili understands that she is the only person who is available right now in order to go and catch Soman Sambhavan. So she follows on her pursuit and just starts following Soman Sambhavan somehow using some trails. Now let's go and see what is happening in Kadambur. Nandini is there in Kadambur and she is talking to the squad that she has brought in order to kill Aditya Karikalan. What happens right now is Manimekalai comes and meets Nandini and tells him that Periya Pazhuvettiya's ship has been stranded and he has alone gone missing. No one has been able to find him. On hearing this, Nandini is not shocked at all and she tells Manimekalai that nothing will happen to Periya Pazhuvettiyar because he is a very brave person and his valor will save him somehow or the other. Manimekalai is totally perplexed because she thought that Nandini will be very much shocked not to hear that her husband has gone missing. But this reaction as well as some other stuff just kindles some kind of confusion and doubt in her mind. And Nandini also tells her that it is not Periya Pazhuvettiyar's life which they have to fear about now, but Vandiyathevan's, because Manimekalai's brother Kandamaran and his friend Parthivendra Pallavar are plotting to kill him. She tells Manimekalai this and asks her to bring Vandiyathevan to her chamber, and Manimekalai also leaves. After Manimekalai leaves, she just locks the chamber and Manimekalai gets to see this, and what Nandini does inside the chamber is that Ravidasan, Devaralan and some of the other people from the Pandya group have come to the secret chamber that is available near Nandini's chamber, and she has this discussion with them, and she also tells them some signals that she will give them after having killed Aditya Karikalan. So they are there inside this chamber, and Manimekalai notices all these things, but she does not know what is happening because she is only able to feebly hear what Nandini has been discussing to some person whom she does not know. She goes and brings Vandiyathevan, but not through the main entrance, but through another secret passageway that is available to Nandini's chamber. They see Idumankari on their way, and after getting a lamp from him, Manimekalai takes Vandiyathevan to Nandini's chamber. Now Nandini's plan is that they are going to send Vandiyathevan in order to get some news about Periya Pazhuvettiyarar to them, and during the same time only she has also invited Aditya Karikalan to come and meet her in her chambers. Vandiyathevan tries to convince Nandini that she should not kill Aditya Karikalan, but Nandini does not heed to any of his words. So finally he reveals that he has seen her mother Mandagini in Sri Lanka, and only after he reveals that, Nandini says that she will not kill Aditya Karikalan, but Vandiyathevan has to take her to her mother and leave her with her itself. When they come to this conclusion only, they can hear the footsteps of Aditya Karikalan towards Nandini's chambers, and along with Aditya Karikalan comes Kandamaran also. Now what Nandini does is she makes Vandiyathevan hide in the chamber of the secret passageway through which he and Manimekalai came, and she makes Manimekalai hide on her bed that has curtains all around its sides. After Kandamaran and Aditya Karikalan enter Nandini's chambers, Aditya Karikalan finds out that there is some person who's on Nandini's bed behind the curtains. He thinks that it is Vandiyathevan, and when he unveils the screen, he sees Manimekalai, and he makes Manimekalai as well as Kandamaran to leave Nandini's chambers. And after they leave, Aditya Karikalan confronts Nandini, and she also accepts that she has only planned to kill Aditya Karikalan right now, but as of now she has decided to give up on that and she is not going to do that. And when he asks whether it is because of the reason that she is her elder sister, Nandini reveals her true father's name to Aditya Karikalan as a whisper in his ears. No one else hears about this during that time, especially Vandiyathevan, who's there inside the secret room. After all this has transpired, what suddenly happens is there's this huge man dressed like a hermit who comes and just crushes Vandiyathevan's throat and makes him faint away, and Vandiyathevan can hear this huge scream, after which Nandini seems to give this sound of laughter as well as crying put together. And during that same time only, what has happened is the lamp inside the room has been vanquished. Because of this, everything is dark and Vandiyathevan has also fainted. After everything has been resolved, what happens is Vandiyathevan gains back his consciousness somehow, and he tries to crawl his way out of that secret room. And when he gets into Nandini's room, he gets to find that the floor seems to be wet and it is also a bit warm. He thinks that he is actually bleeding because he fall down because of that attack from that huge person. But after checking himself, he also sees that he is not injured in any way. And finally, the wetness that he feels on the floor is not water but blood of someone, and the blood is from that of Aditya Karikalan, who has been killed and is lying as a corpse in the room right now. There is no one except Aditya Karikalan and Vandiyathevan alone in the room right now. And when all the people from the Kadambur palace come and see this room, they come to a conclusion that Vandiyathevan is the person who has actually killed Aditya Karikalan, and because of them he is tied up and when Manimegalai tries to hand over herself saying that she is the person who killed him, she is subdued, and Kadambur Sambuvarayar, who is the father of Manimegalai and Kandamaran, sets fire to his own palace and tries to save his own family. When the fire spread, Vandiyathevan somehow rescues Aditya Karikalan's body from the room and he's heading out of the palace somehow. During the same time, what happens is Malayaman, who's Aditya Karikalan's grandfather, who went to Kanchipuram in order to gather some troops in order to help Aditya Karikalan if somehow the Sora Empire was to be divided into parts, comes to Kadambur at the same time and he witnesses the death of Aditya Karikalan, and because of this he imprisons the entirety of the Kadambur family as well as Vandiyathevan and take all of them as prisoners towards Tanjavur, and Aditya Karikalan's corpse is taken as a huge procession with 1 lakh people from Kadambur to Tanjavur. During the same time, the death of Aditya Karikalan's news has reached towards the entire Sora Empire and everyone has started grieving. After the final rites for Aditya Karikalan are done, the Kadambur family is set free by Sundara Sora because he believes that that family might not have done any kind of danger for his family, but Vandiyathevan is alone still imprisoned, and he is in that prison cell where Sendramudan was imprisoned first, and after him the apothecary's son was imprisoned. Sendramudan was released by Kundavai and the apothecary's son was released by Nandini, and near that cell only there is also this crazy man who keeps on uttering something continuously, and the thing that he keeps on blabbering is that he knows the secret place where the crown as well as the Navaratna necklace of the Pandyas have been hidden. After the Kadambur family is set free, Manimegalai comes and meets Kundavai as well as Vanati, and she brings the scroll with her saying that she is the person who actually killed Aditya Karikalan and not Vandiyathevan, and because of this Vandiyathevan needs to be released. In order to prove her point, what she does is she brings the scroll that was given by Aditya Karikalan to her in order to be delivered to Kundavai, and that scroll is written in Aditya Karikalan's handwriting itself, and because of this Kundavai is able to understand that it has not been forged of any kind. The message inside the scroll written by Aditya Karikalan is that he chooses in order to go and meet Nandini, and because of it, if something happens to his life, it is totally his own fault and not Vandiyathevan's fault of any kind. So Kundavai and Arulmozhivarman come to this conclusion in order to go and release Vandiyathevan from the cells. During this time, what has happened is that crazy person near Vandiyathevan's cell and him have become friends because of various reasons and stories that they have shared with each other, and the crazy person reveals to Vandiyathevan that all people who have been imprisoned in that cell have been continuously released very quickly, and because of this he has done in that wall separating both of those cells, and it is that he has crashed the wall slowly for the past 6 months, and because of this he has made this movable cavity which can be closed and opened according to his will. And he has done this because sometimes what happens is after the person has been released from the neighboring cell, the cell is just left open, so when no one is looking he can easily open that hole in the wall and escape through that. During the same time, what happens is the apothecary's son, who is under the control of Aniruddha Brahmarayar, gets the permission of him in order to release the crazy man from the prison because of the thing that has been blabbered by him continuously, that is the secret of the Pandyas, and he goes forward to try and release that crazy person from the prison. During this time only what happens is Vandiyathevan and that person called Kariyathiruman or Karithiruman plot together and somehow chain the apothecary's son to the hell and escape from there, and the guards who are out there think that Vandiyathevan is actually the apothecary's son and he is only taking that person called Karithiruman out of the cell, and since it's the night time their faces is not clear and they just allow them outside, but along with them 2 other soldiers also go, of whom one soldier is a huge fat man and the other one is a normal one, and these 2 soldiers have been sent as protection for the apothecary's son by Aniruddha Brahmarayar himself. Now both of these people are taken on a boat, and on their boat what Vandiyathevan finds out is that the fat person who's dressed up as a soldier is none other than Nambi himself. After Nambi is revealed, he tells Vandiyathevan that if both of them go to Sendramudan's house, Nambi has actually left 2 horses there using which they can just escape from there, and Vandiyathevan will not be punished for any crime that he has not done. After hearing this, what Vandiyathevan does is he ties up Nambi to that boat, and the other soldier who came along with him has been thrown inside the river, and both of them escape towards Sendramudan's house. And after reaching there, what happens is they see Thembi and Madevi as well as her son Madurandakan coming towards Sendramudan's house, and after seeing this they just hide near some bushes. Now we might think, why are Thembi and Madevi and Madurandakan visiting Sendramudan's house? For that we have to go back in the story and see what has happened. After getting the news that Aditya Karikalan has died, and since Arulmozhivarman has decided not to take the throne, the way is so clear for Madurandakan right now, so he asks his mother Thembi and Madevi that she has to give him the permission in order to make himself king. And after the continuous stressing and bickering of Madurandakan, what Thembi and Madevi says is a huge truth which has not been revealed for the past 25 years, and it is that Madurandakan is not the son who was born for Thembi and Madevi, and because of this he cannot take the throne. Now what has happened is, when Sembian Madevi gave birth, the baby boy who was born for her was still and did not make any sounds at all. And since this has happened, what they decide is that during the same time Mandagini has given birth to two twins inside the same palace, and of the two twins, one is a male and the other is a female baby. And Aniruddha Brahmarayar decides to swap Mandagini's male child for that of Sembian Madevi, and the stillborn child of Sembian Madevi is given to Vani, who is the sister of Mandagini, and is to be buried by her. Now it is very clear for us that Nandini is the daughter of Mandagini and Madurandagan is the son of Mandagini. Since because of all these things, Madurandagan is actually not the heir of the Chola kingdom, he cannot become the king. All these things have been kept as secret, so Sembian Madevi and his husband come to a decision that he should not become king, and just in order to mask it properly, they have said all these spiritual reasons in the past. Now we have been thinking that Nandini and Madurandagan have been born to Sundara Solar as well as Mandagini, but that has not actually happened. When Mandagini has jumped from the lighthouse into the sea, she has been saved by a boatsman, and that boatsman is the person who was imprisoned inside the cell, and that person is Karitirman himself, and he is with Vandiyathevan right now. And Karitirman is the person who actually took Mandagini to Sri Lanka and left her there, but he did not just leave Mandagini alone in Sri Lanka. Along with her, on their way, they also found this other person who was in the sea, and he has also been rescued and left in Sri Lanka by Karitirman, and that person is actually Veerapandiyan, who escaped to Sri Lanka, and he was only killed by Aditya Karikalan 2 to 3 years after that. Now when Mandagini and Veerapandiyan were together in Sri Lanka, Mandagini got pregnant, and only after getting to Tanjavur again, she gave birth to Nandini as well as Madurandagan. All these stories have been said by Mandagini to Arulmozhivarman, and Arulmozhivarman has said all these things to Kundavai also. So because of this, they know that Nandini is the daughter of Mandagini as well as Veerapandiyan. Even then, they treat Nandini as their elder sister because Mandagini has saved Arulmozhivarman's life so many times. Because of this, they consider her as a mother, and since Nandini was born for her, they have been considering Nandini their sister. Now the child has been swapped to Sembian Madevi only after Mandagini has left the children in the palace after giving birth, so she does not know that her son has been switched to Sembian Madevi. Now the baby who was actually born to Sembian Madevi was still, and he has been sent with Vani to be buried in the shore of the Kaveri river. And during this time only what happens is, this Karitirman, who's the sailor, comes on his boat on this, and he hears this baby that has been crying continuously, and he sees this woman who's actually trying to bury the child. Since Vani is also a person who cannot hear as well as talk, she is not able to hear the cry of the baby, and when Karitirman brings to her knowledge that the baby is actually not dead, she decides to take that baby for herself and grow him up, and that child turns out to be Sendramudan, who's there in that house along with Vani for all these years. 5 years after all these things have happened, Sembian Madevi has actually met Vani again, and she has gotten to know all the things that have transpired. When Sembian Madevi discusses with her husband all these things, they come to this conclusion that all the children or babies have been given by God as one, so it does not matter where a child is brought up and who brings them up, so they decide to just leave it as such. Now getting back to the present, this is why Sembian Madevi as well as Madurandagan have come and visited Sendramudan, and Sembian Madevi tells Madurandagan that Sendramudan is her birth son, and this is why Madurandagan cannot take the throne. And even if after all these things have happened, if he wants to take the throne, she says that he will be revealing the truth to the entire kingdom. And at the same time, Vandiyathevan and Karitirmal are actually hiding beside some bushes because they don't want to take the horses when both of them are there. After they leave, what happens is, this apothecary's son who was actually prisoned by Vandiyathevan and Karitirman have been released by Arulmozhivarman and Kundavai, who go to release Vandiyathevan from the prison and find it empty. So this apothecary's son has actually followed and come towards Vandiyathevan in order to kill him. After getting there, what they notice is that Sendramudan has been hurt and he is being treated by Pungurali and his mother. Seeing Pungurali along with Sendramudan, the apothecary's son is totally agitated because he had this love for her. So he decides to get this huge spear and just thrust it towards him. Vandiyathevan sees this is going to happen, and just in order to save Sendramudan from death, he just puts himself forward, and the apothecary's son ends up attacking Vandiyathevan instead of Sendramudan. Since Madurandagan was also there and his Palakwan was there in front of the house, what the apothecary's son thinks is that he has actually attacked Madurandagan, and he is not sure because it is very dark right there, and he just flees from there. And when Vandiyathevan is saving Sendramudan, what happens is, Karitirman sees Madurandagan and recognizes him to be Veerapandiyan's son. He calls him separately and reveals him what has happened, and both of them take the horses instead of Vandiyathevan and Karitirman, and both of them head away from there in order to meet the Pandya forces. Since they'll be followed, what they decide is that Karitirman is going to set some traps so that the horses and people who are heading towards them will be trapped and they'll be injured or attacked in some way. When Vandiyathevan is attacked, he actually screams, and because of this, Pungurali finds him and they start treating him also inside the hut. Now we might wonder why Sendramudan is hurt, and for that we have to go back in the story again. We saw that Pungurali has been following Soman Samban in order to avenge her aunt's death, Following her, Senthanamudan has also gone because he wants to protect her and he does not want anything bad to happen to Pungurli. And while following her only, he gets hurt. During the same time only, Chinna Pazhuvettiyarar has been looking for Periya Pazhuvettiyarar also in order to bring him back to Tanjavur. And Nambi is also searching for Periya Pazhuvettiyarar somehow. Pungurli and Nambi end up meeting in one place and they start traveling together. They reach this place called Pachaimalai where Nambi finds Nandini, the Pandya troupe, as well as Periya Pazhuvettiyarar there. And Periya Pazhuvettiyarar is actually dressed like a hermit and he is the person who actually crushed Vandiyathevan's throat and made him faint. After Aditya Karikalan has been killed, Nandini, Periya Pazhuvettiyarar as well as the Pandya troupe have escaped from there. Periya Pazhuvettiyarar has actually fainted and with the help of the Pandya troupe, Nandini has actually saved him and brought him there. After 2 days only, Periya Pazhuvettiyarar gains consciousness and after seeing him, Nandini says that all the things that she has done has been wrong and that she has been using him continuously. So before leaving, she says that she has to meet him for one last time and then get away from there. During this time only, Nambi comes and encounters them during the same time which Chinna Pazhuvettiyarar comes in 2 horses. One is his horse and on the other horse, Senthanamudan has been tied up because he's been injured. Because of this only, he was treated in his house after that. So Chinna Pazhuvettiyarar takes Periya Pazhuvettiyarar along with him and after meeting Nambi, Nandini also asks him for his forgiveness. She also gets to know from Nambi that Mandagini has died at last. She accepts to come with them, but when no one is noticing, what Nandini does is she takes one horse that was brought by Chinna Pazhuvettiyarar and just escapes from the place. Part of the story bleakly comes to an end. We do not see her again at all for the rest of the book. Periya Pazhuvettiyarar is taken by Chinna Pazhuvettiyarar to Tanjavur and Pungurli takes Senthanamudan to his house to be treated, and only after this all those things have transpired. Now we saw that Vandiyathevan and Karitharman left to take the horses only after tying up Nambi to the boat. Now the people who come on the horses are actually Karitharman and Madurandagan and not Vandiyathevan. On seeing Nambi still on the boat, Karitharman gets down from his horse and goes and tries to untie him. But Nambi has untied himself and he is just acting right now. When Karitharman gets there, he just beats him up because he lies that the other person on the other horse is actually Vandiyathevan. And after getting all the beating, he confesses all the truth to Nambi and escapes from there. During this same time, what happens is Kandamaran has been looking for Vandiyathevan from Tanjavur and he is trying to search and imprison him because Manimekalai has been continuously confessing that she is the person who killed Aditya Karikalan just in order to save Vandiyathevan. But if he is caught, Manimekalai can be rescued, so he is searching for Vandiyathevan at the same time. During this point only, Kandamaran also comes to the same place and he sees these 2 people going on horses and he thinks that one of the 2 people is Vandiyathevan. And when he sees Nambi right there, he asks him for confirmation whether one of the 2 people on the horses is Vandiyathevan, and Nambi says that it can be Vandiyathevan and it cannot be Vandiyathevan, I am not sure about it, and he just leaves that place. So Kandamaran just confirms with himself that the person on the horse is Vandiyathevan and he attacks him with a spear. But the person whom he has actually attacked is Madurandagan and he actually falls into the river. Kandamaran thinks that he has attacked and killed Vandiyathevan and he tries to retrieve the body but he is not able to get it at all. So he just returns back to the palace and says to everyone that he has killed Vandiyathevan. During the same time only, Nambi, who has left the place, heads towards Senthanamudan's house and there he finds Vandiyathevan being treated by all of them. They also tell him that he cannot be treated further on there and he has to be taken to the palace for proper and better medication. Nambi somehow dresses up Senthanamudan as Madurandagan with the help of some jewels that were left over by Madurandagan and Karitharman while they were travelling across the river bank. There is also an elephant and the palanquin right there and he makes Vandiyathevan to be seated inside the palanquin and takes him along with Senthanamudan, who is set on the elephant and dressed as Madurandagan. Since it is night time again, everyone thinks that it is actually Madurandagan who is coming towards the palace and they just let them in. Now Vandiyathevan is actually treated by the medical professionals inside the palace in secrecy by Kundavai and Arulmozhivarman. Now before he was to be released, Vandiyathevan actually escaped from the prison. Because of this, the doubt on him has increased on the killing for Aditya Karikalan. So what they do is they keep him in secrecy and Arulmozhivarman, who has been saying for all this time that he will not take the throne, takes the decision to take the throne because he wants to save Vandiyathevan from the blame. During the same time only, Kundavai gets to know all the history that has happened and she also gets to know that Senthanamudan is actually the real son of Sembiyan Mahadevi and comes and reveals all of these stories to Arulmozhivarman also. Still Arulmozhivarman says that he only wants to become the next king and all of them accept to it and don't talk anything against him at all. The next day only, the huge gathering is to be taken in the king's court and only there the inquiry for Aditya Karikalan's death and the person to inherit the throne after Sundara Solar are to be discussed. So on the next day in the court, when all these discussions are happening, what happens is Vandiyathevan tries to escape again from the palace because he thinks that no matter what happens, the judgment will be against him and he does not want to suffer. So he decides to flee that place and just gets away from there. While he is getting away from there only, what happens is he sees Manimekalai trying to commit suicide by jumping into the river. He somehow saves her but she is still unconscious. So after saving her from the river, he comes in search of Pungurli in order to give her some treatment and first aid. Pungurli is actually inside the court where all these things have been happening. The things that are happening in the court right now are that Periya Pazhuvettiyarar says everything that has happened and how Nandini has used him in order to execute all her plans. During the same time, it is brought to everyone else's knowledge that Senthanamudan is actually the real son of Sembiyan Madevi, and because of this, Madurandagan, who's actually missing right now for the past 3 days, is not the heir for the throne anyhow. During that point only, Madurandagan says that he has killed Vandiyathevan, but he is not being able to find the body. During that point only, exactly, Vandiyathevan comes drenched from the river after saving Manimegalai to the port. Now Nambi explains to everyone that Kandamaran must have killed Madurandagan thinking that he was Vandiyathevan, and because of this, there is no other person to inherit the throne except Arulmozhivarman and Senthanamudan alone right now. So now the person who is actually the rightful heir of the throne after Sundara Solar is Senthanamudan, but he says that he does not want to take the throne and everyone accepts to it. During that same time only, Arulmozhivarman also finally says that he will take the throne instead of Senthanamudan, and everyone also agrees to that. But there is this one thing alone which has not been resolved right now, and it is that who has killed Aditya Karikalan. Periya Pazhuvettirai finally reveals who killed Aditya Karikalan, and he says that while he dressed himself as the hermit and got inside that room, he got this knife after defeating Idumankari on his way, which is a small little knife, and he actually threw the knife in order to kill Nandini. And during that same point only, the lamps inside the room got extinguished, and instead of Nandini, that knife went on and attacked Aditya Karikalan and instead killed him also. Because of this, he says that he is the person who killed Aditya Karikalan, and he stabs himself with the same knife. With this incident, everything inside the court comes to an end. The same night, what happens is Periya Pazhuvettirai says that he revealed this truth so that Vandiyathevan does not get punished for the crime that he did, and at the same time he receives this message from Nandini through Nambi saying that Nandini thanks him for saving her life by killing Aditya Karikalan, but she does not know that his intention was actually opposite, that is, he planned to kill her in order to save Aditya Karikalan. And after hearing this news, Periya Pazhuvettirai finally peacefully closes his eyes and dies away. And now finally we are going to see the crowning of Arulmozhivarman. The custom is that the Pazhuvettirai should be the person who actually crowns the new king of the Chola Empire, and because of this, Chinna Pazhuvettirai has to crown Arulmozhivarman. And during that ceremony, what happens is Nambi comes with this secret news to Chinna Pazhuvettirai and tells him that he has seen his daughter, who is the wife of Madurandagan, with a child along with Rakamal in the nearby market, and they just escaped from there. After getting this news, Chinna Pazhuvettirai has to go and find his daughter and his grandchild, because he knows that that child is actually the heir to the Pandya throne, and because of this, many other problems might rise inside the kingdom. So he just goes away with Nambi. During this time, what also has happened is that Arulmozhivarman has sent Kandamaran as well as Parthivendra Pallavar with 2 different tasks to 2 different places. They objected that they need to be there during Arulmozhivarman's coronation. Even then, he convinced them somehow and just sent them away. And during that point of coronation, what happens finally is that instead of taking the crown for himself, Arulmozhivarman goes and crowns Senthanamudan instead, and Senthanamudan's hands have been held together by Vandiyathevan, and this has been the joint secretive plan of Arulmozhivarman with Vandiyathevan for the past few days, and this has not even been revealed to Kundavai. Since Senthanamudan is actually the rightful heir for the throne, Arulmozhivarman does not want to take that right away from him because it will not be a correct choice. So instead of taking the crown for himself, he gives the kingdom that was offered to him to Senthanamudan, who is the rightful heir for the throne, and makes him king. Because of this huge sacrificial act that he did, the entire series is named after him, that is Ponniyin Selvan. Now we saw that Chinna Pazhuvettirai has gone in search of his daughter and Rakamal, right? So what happens is, after the coronation has ended, Arulmozhivarman sends Nambi and Vandiyathevan together not to go and find Chinna Pazhuvettirai, and they end up finding Chinna Pazhuvettirai on top of a waterfall fighting Madurandagan, who has actually not died. He has been saved by the Pandya group and taken away so that he can be treated as the next king inside the Pandya kingdom, since he is the son of Veera Pandyan, who was killed by Aditya Karikalan. Both Nambi as well as Vandiyathevan witness Chinna Pazhuvettirai fighting with a sword against Madurandagan on top of this waterfall, and he is not steady. Madurandagan is actually not a person who is that much versed in battle. Even though this is true, Chinna Pazhuvettirai is not able to defend himself properly because he has this thought in his mind that if he ends up killing Madurandagan, he'll also make his daughter a widow at the same time with his own hands. Because of the slip, what happens is he just falls into the waterfall, and it is very high, because of which he cannot survive easily. Still, Vandiyathevan and Nambi decide to stay there and at least retrieve his body away from there. While his body comes out of the fall, Chinna Pazhuvettirai is still barely alive, and what he tells Vandiyathevan and Nambi is that both Vandiyathevan and Nambi have to go to Sri Lanka again and retrieve the secretive jewels of the Cholas, that is the crown and the Navaratna necklace, and adorn it to Arulmozhivarman in Madurai and declare him as Chola Pandyan so that Pandya kings will arise and protest against the Cholas. He says this because he thinks that Arulmozhivarman has been crowned as the king, and he does not know that Senthanamudan has actually been made king right now. After Chinna Pazhuvettirai asks for this request from Nambi and Vandiyathevan, he also dies, And after a few days, Vandiyathevan and Kundavai are having this conversation during the same time during which Kandamaran has actually understood Vandiyathevan and realizes all the mistakes that he has done and how he has misunderstood Vandiyathevan for the whole time. And Vandiyathevan also gets this scroll from Kandamaran stating that he has to come and meet Manimekalai for one last time because of all the trauma that she has been through. Manimekalai has actually suffered a lot of mental pressure, and because of this, she has completely forgotten Vandiyathevan and Kandamaran alone, but she remembers everything else perfectly. After Kandamaran goes in search of Vandiyathevan in order to kill him, Manimekalai has started to believe in her own mind that Kandamaran has killed Vandiyathevan, and because of this, she has killed Kandamaran, and that is the reality in her mind for herself. After Vandiyathevan goes and meets Kandamaran and Manimekalai for one last time, Manimekalai sings the same song with the heart that she sang in the 4th book and dies on the laps of Vandiyathevan itself. So the journey which we began together with Vandiyathevan on the bank of one river ends at a sad note at the bank of another river along with Vandiyathevan itself. So yes guys, that was the entire story of Ponniyin Selvan in under 2 hours. I hope it was useful for you, and if you did find it useful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and also share it to your friends. And if you want to get more content from me, do subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching and have a great rest of your day.